And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time. And, of course, it's Wednesday. It's the hump of the week with Finest Unfiltered. We got a great guest for you today, retired Captain John Monaghan. This episode is sponsored by The Key. And how fitting is this episode? John Monaghan is actually the founder of The Key. He's put together a hell of a team. I was just asking him, I said, man, you got to cast the characters. The people on the team are full of charisma, great guys. We're going to talk about The Key, but before we jump in and talk about The Key, good morning, John. Before we talk about The Key, I want to know a little bit about you. So tell us, why did you join the police department? Like, what was so significant? Did you join the NYPD? Was it transit? Was it housing? And also, if you could tell me, did you come from a deity, or were you first in the family to become a cop?
Well, I was the first in my family. I mean, I had a first cousin a year older than me that he joined too. But my parents are immigrants. They came from Ireland. So, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, why? I tell you, I thought I was going to open up about how we founded The Key, but you're asking, so I'll tell you. I grew up down in Highbridge, not far from Yankee Stadium. It wasn't a good neighborhood, so the cops were very busy. They were all over the place. There was a lot of violence and gangs, and I still remember the names of the gangs. We're talking about late 60s, early 70s. I still remember the names, and the gangs, they weren't like drug dealing business. They were turf gangs, you know. Savage Skulls, Savage Nomads, the Black Spades, the Chingalings. You'd have to be a lot older to remember those names. But
what about like the Wanderers and all that, John? Was that time?
That was a great movie. I enjoyed it very much. It was
Great
filmed
movie.
all over the Bronx. The opening scene was the Alexander sign on Fordham Road. Yeah, I love that movie. That was great. You know, it's funny you say. My dad, he grew up he went to St. Jerome's on 138th Street.
Okay.
My
Nice.
mother came here from Ireland when she was in her late 20s. But so we're watching that movie, and I said, oh, you know, the recruiter station is on the concourse, but in the movie, they have it over on Valentine, a block over. And my dad goes, in the 50s, it was on Valentine. Like they did their research, so they got it right, you know? Yeah, the Wanderers, good stuff. But so, you know what? I'm watching cops running around chasing these bad guys. There wasn't as many guns back then, but there was plenty of violence and bad stuff. And I always admired the cops. They were good guys, and they were jumping in there, locking guys up, brawling with them, you know. And I was very impressed. And then my dad woke up to the fact that we need to get out of this neighborhood, and we moved up to the North Bronx, up to Riverdale, up by like the Riverdale Steakhouse and around that way. And you know, I came of age, and the die was cast. I was going to join the NYPD, and Eric and I were talking before. I mean, John and I were talking before. I don't know if I should get into all this, but it took me many years to get hired. I had a background. I'd been locked up. I've been hit by I was hit by a car down on the concourse when I was in the 7th grade, and I was nearly killed. The priest came, gave me last rites. I lost half a kidney. So when I came on the job, they were like, "You're kidding, right? You got an arrest record. You got half a kidney. You better come up with a better idea than that." But I was persistent, and with the help of God and some friends in the neighborhood, some of the old timers, I got hired. Yeah, it was my dream job. Thanks for asking that, Eric. Yeah.
No, we want to listen. We want to jump into The Key, of course, but it's great to know about you. You know, as a person, man. We want to, you know,
Right.
it's always interesting why people find the NYPD. Some guys just do it, take the test, but there are guys that have a legitimate deity or there's some significant story. We love it.
Yeah. You know, you remind me of when I was a sergeant in the task force, and I was a sergeant for almost 9 years because they didn't give a lieutenant's test, right? And you remember Louis Anamone? I don't know if you love him or hate him, but
Of course,
him, right?
We love him.
He was I think he was a full bird at the time. And then, you know, we watched him go up the ranks during that transition when Bratton came in and unleashed us and let us do our jobs, right? I was working at the crime at the time. It was a lot of fun being out there. But Anamone shows up one time, and there's a bunch of empty suits standing around doing nothing. He goes, "These freaking people, you took the job because the post office wasn't hiring that day?" It's a line that shall live in infamy.
John, what was that like being a street kid in the Bronx and then becoming a cop? Like, what was your academy class like? What was it like? What was the culture of the NYPD when you stepped in? What was that for you? What did you feel like you were fitting in, or was it a culture shock for you?
Oh, no culture shock. Fit right in. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, in a neighborhood that was active where the cops were running around. And then I got up to Riverdale, and the guys who were a few years older than me had gone on a job. And I mean, I tell you what, I came on a job. I think I was a natural fit. The only thing I didn't know were the details of the radio codes and the penal law, things of that. That's all I needed to learn. Funny thing, I tell you, my favorite and best column. I mean, I had thousands of them, right? And I'll never forget the date. I graduated the academy in June of 84. 10/13/84, October 13th, 84.
I was 4 years old. Wow.
Yeah. This is not a spectacular column, but it's my absolute favorite. I was in the 5-2 walking a foot post, and it was a reservoir oval park, they called it. It was a football field with a track around it, and then the entire park was built in an oval around that structure, right? So I'm walking around the outside, and this carload, like 5-6 kids stuffed into this car. They passed me twice, somewhat recklessly, and they come around the third time. I get out in the middle of the street like this, and I stop them. I get them out of the car. I rouse them, They're legit kids. They were young, and they were just joyriding. It was his dad's car, whatever. So I give them a lecture, be safe, whatever, and off I go, and off they go. So I go into the park. There's a football game going on, just like a sandlot thing, 2 neighborhoods battling it out, So I'm on the sideline on one team and shooting the breeze with them. I thought, let me go to the other side, equal time, and chit-chatting with the other team. And then I start to walk across the field, and these 2 young kids come running up to me. We just got robbed. The guy had a gun. He points, and there he is. How cool is that, right? He points, and I see that it's 2 guys. And I said, which one had the gun? He goes, the guy on the left. So they're looking over their shoulders. I start after them. They book. The 2 complainants are chasing behind me, right? They run out of the park, over the fence, onto the street. I'm booking. I was a young guy, and I was fast. Actually, I ran in the police Olympics in 1984. I'll tell you more about that later. But so I'm chasing these 2 guys.
George says you got stories, man.
Yeah. So what happens now? The guy I'm chasing, he's pretty fast too. He's about a block ahead of me. What happens? I love this. The car that I had rousted, they pull up. Officer, hop in. I jump in the car with these guys. We cut them off, jump out, get down on the ground, blah, blah, blah. I lock him up, take his gun, right? Handcuff him up. And I turn around, and there's 2 football teams of kids chasing after us like they had joined in the chase, the whole field, It was so much fun. And I'm a street kid. I know how this works, right? Here's the good guy. Here's the bad guy. I cuff him up, like at a rodeo, lassoing a freaking colt, right? And here's the crowd. And all of a sudden, the sirens and a radio cars. And the old time goes, why the frick didn't you put it over your radio? I went, oh, radio, right. I'm a kid from the Bronx. I didn't even think of the radio. It came over as a 1013. They had numerous calls on it, But I'll never forget that. It was a lot of fun. And the guy I locked up, it was a fake gun. It turns out it was a pellet gun. Who knew? And he wasn't a bad kid. How it is. I tell people this all the time. As experienced guys now, we know something that the public just doesn't understand. We as cops, we know the criminals are people more so than anybody else. There is a humanity there. We get into that arrest process room. He's got to go to the bathroom at some point. Maybe he needs something to eat. We're going to spend 6 to 8 hours with this guy. Yes. We're going to have to, back then you had a fingerprint in yourself, photograph. We understand that there is a humanity to these bad guys. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was one of my favorite callers. Thanks for asking.
No, you know what, John? Before we started, right? I said, John, you know what? How did you find all the guys on your team, for the key? They're all charismatic, great. But now I know why, because I took the key classes, but getting to know you on this level, you're super charismatic too. And I'm sure you have some great stories. And just seeing you light up telling these stories, that's why, of course, we'll talk about the key. We want to talk about you and then lead up to that. So if you can tell me, so here you are, you're a street kid, you're from the neighborhood, you're from New York City, which I love, but John and I both grew up in New York City. At what point, being a cop, do you say, you know what? I want to move up the ranks. And what was significant for you to move up the ranks, or are you a competitive person? What made you decide that you want a role of leadership?
I'm not sure it was that I wanted a role of leadership. It was I wanted to advance. I got engaged to be married. I tell you what, I'll be married 40 years this October.
God bless you.
And you still have hair?
Yeah, right. Yeah. She always gets embarrassed when I mention this, but I have a picture of my wife. She was 16, I was 19, and she's got my high school ring on a chain around her neck.
God bless you.
Yeah, and we'll be married 40 years. So I had gotten engaged at that time, and we bought a little co-op apartment. I was in the 5-2 on Webster Avenue, and when Webster Avenue breaks the city line into Yonkers, it becomes Bronx River Road, and that was where my co-op was, on Bronx River Road. And I wanted more. You know what I mean? I wanted a house. I wanted this and that. I wanted to get out of the Bronx, raise a family, and I knew I needed to make more money. So that was in the back of my mind. That was maybe what led me to want to be competitive and rise up the ranks. Not for any other reason, really. But then being a cop, you know, a young guy in a radio car. I was in the 8 squad. Remember the 9 squad chart? There was a thing called a 9 squad chart. And you know, you did a week of days, week of 4 to 12s, week of days, 2 weeks of 4 to 12s, then a week of midnights. Repeat. And that was, so everybody in the precinct worked together at one time or another. So, you know, we're running around chasing 911, and I had some great guys in my squad. We still get together today. Joe Kane. You guys know Joe Kane? He runs the finest financial up here around. Yeah. Anyway.
No, we love to meet him.
Oh, you should have him on. He's a character. He's a great guy. He does a tax preparation thing.
Let's make the connection. Oh, tax preparation. That's somebody I need to talk to. That's excellent. I read a book called
Tax to Joe Kane. Yeah.
Oh, let's bring him on.
Talk to Joe. So anyway, the 8 squad, great bunch of guys. John Mendocino, Tommy McTurnan. They were in Sector Henry John. And then McTurnan's cousin, Duke Feeney, and me were in Sector Adam Boy. And Joe Kane was in the squad. We're still friends today. But so we're running around out there, and we've all got our eye on anti-crime. That's the prize to a patrol cop, right? You want to get into anti-crime, right? And this was the early 80s or mid-80s, 84, 85, 86, right? And the guys that got put into anti-crime, absolute do-nothings with 15 years on a job. One guy had went upstate and painted the captain's house, anti-crime, you know, and this is how it was going. And so McTurnan and Mendocino were a year ahead of me and Duke Feeney, and they had no shot, and they bailed, and they went to narcotics. Tommy's dad was a retired captain, and Mendo's dad was a retired detective. Like I said, I had nobody. My dad was a sanitation man. He was too short to come on a job. Imagine that. You had to be 5'8". He was 5'6".
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway.
Everybody thinks John's 5'6", but we've been telling him he's not.
But so I had no shot at crime, obviously. You know what I mean? No matter how. No, I mean, and there were guys out there making more collars than me, super cops. And they weren't getting in there, you know. And then a sergeant's test was announced. And I said, okay, well, that's the way to go. You know what I mean? Like Mendo and McTurnan, they went to narcotics. They're destined to get there. Sergeant or the detective shield, Tommy McTurnan, he ended up first grader, Bronx homicide, you know. I knew I had no shot at that either, because really you needed a hook, you know, and I didn't have that. So the test was announced. I was always pretty good at school. So I thought, let me give this a shot, you know. And I aced it. I'll tell you how they gave the test back then. You wouldn't believe it. It was 210 questions. You show up on a Saturday, and there was 2 parts to the written exam. It was well over like 180 questions or something like that. Then you had to come back the following Saturday, and they showed us videos. Shut the video off, gave you 10 questions. Next, they show you another video, give you another 10 questions. So there was 2 parts to the exam. Like I said, I smoked it. Got made in the first group. Boom, here we go. I ended up down in, now I was in the Bronx, so, you know, when you get made, you pretty much got to leave the borough for another borough. So I ended up Manhattan North, 25, 26. And a friend of mine mentioned the task force. At the time, the borough task forces had a lot of experienced patrol guys in them, because we were still going around the clock in a 9 squad chart. And the task force had steady hours, steady tours. So, you know, it was very attractive to a lot of people. So I go there, and I met some great guys there, super cops. John McManus, I don't know if you know that guy. This guy McManus had 2 nicknames, the Monsignor and the Magnet. He was one of the best gun collar cops you'd ever worked with. And he was as polite and decent a man. Went to church every Sunday, hardly ever used foul language. No cowboyism in this guy at all. And he made more gun collars than anybody. Nearly got his head blown off twice. I mean, a super cop and a very decent man. So anyway, I worked very close with John in the task force. I was there for years and years. I got into we started, there was no anti-crime team. Pester and the CO, we made the team. I started working anti-crime there. It was a ton of fun. It was the 90s. Bratton took over, you know, and you remember when Bratton took over, not only did he bust up the structure that existed in the borough, he had a full bird and a DI in charge of each zone. There were 3 zones in each borough. He blew it up, threw them all out, and he took these 1 or 2 star chiefs who were our heroes because they were, like I said, Anamone was one of them. John Timoney was one of them. These guys would show up with stars in their shoulders and throwing guys up on a wall and tossing them, chasing bad guys. He took them and put them at the top of the department from 1 star, 3 star, 4 star. Lit us up. I mean, it was a great time to be an anti-crime sergeant, man. I'll tell you what. We ran around out there. We had a lot of fun. It was just great. And the leadership was behind us. And the mayor was behind us. Giuliani was the mayor. There were bad things he did for us, too, when it came to the contract negotiation. But as far as the political will to get the job done, we had that behind us. You know what I mean? And it made a big difference. And we had the leadership to lead us up there. It was great. It was great. So this kind of brings us to how and when the key started. I don't know how to couch this, but one day we're having a great month. We had like six felonies, 4 robberies. We're churning right along. We're doing great, right? I'm sitting at the light. I was actually driving, and this car pulls up in the right lane, and we take it. It's definitely bad. There's no question. You know that feeling? You know that sense, right? So they don't even notice us. Light turns green. They jump out in front of everybody. Jersey plates. A couple of white guys from Jersey. We put the plate into the computer, and back then it could take a minute or 2 minutes before you get the plate back, right? So we get to the next light. We had started on 165 at Amsterdam. Now we're on 164 in Amsterdam, and there's a foot cop on the corner, and he sees the car, and he sees what we see too. So he goes to step out to try to stop him. They gun it. They nail it. The kid dove out of the way. I don't know if they hit him or not. Turns out they did not, but he had to dive. He was flat out on the ground from diving out of their way. Now we're off to the races. Sure enough, it comes up 16 vehicle. That means it's stolen, right? For those who don't know. So now we're off to the races from Washington Heights. It's a long story. I'll make it short. We go, all the way through the Heights, down into Harlem, all through Harlem, over to the Upper East Side. I'm on the radio the whole time. Radio cars, marked cars are jumping in, spinning out. It was a wild pursuit, up on sidewalks, everything. And I'm behind the wheel of the unmarked, man, and I am not letting this guy go. And I'm right on his ass the whole way. And we start going across 116th Street. You know, you can get on the FDR South from there. I'm on the radio the whole time. 2 squad guys. The PDU from the 19th was on the FDR at the time. They heard they shut the highway. So we go down the highway. All of a sudden, dead stop. Here he is. We jump out. We run up. He wasn't opening up the door. He had the door, and he tried to jump off. There's an on-ramp there at where's Gracie Mansion? Like 88th Street, 89th Street, whatever it is. Back then, it was an on-ramp, but no off-ramp. So and it was a curb separating the on-ramp from the southbound roadway. So he jumps that curb thinking he's going to go. But the curb was like over a foot high. Now he's jammed up. He's driving a hot rod. I'll never forget. It was a Buick Grand National. A lot of horsepower. And he starts rocking the car. Now, if you stand next to a car that's revving it, spinning the tires, blue smoke, wow, it's just chaotic. And he's rocking it forward, rocking it back. He's trying to get – I'm not a big guy. I'll tell you what. I tried to bust his window with my hand. Nearly broke my freaking hand. I couldn't break his window. And I look. Now he's about to – it looks like one more twist and he's going to get off this freaking curb. And there's a half a platoon of cops running down the highway. The highway's half empty, and there's all these cops on foot running down towards us now. And he's about to break free. I'd had it. I freaking put through his tire. I just backed off and pop, you know. And we had just transitioned. I had carried a revolver my first 10 years on the job. They come up with the 9mm. Like, I don't want that. I know where the gun is. It's right here. You know, we used to carry them. It hung fairly low down to mid-thigh. And you just walk around with, it was right there. It was like, it was just a part of your hand, you know? So I didn't transition. Eventually, the state came up and said, well, we'll pay for it. It's a $500 gun. The state, and I said, all right, finally, I got the Glock. We go to the range when we get the Glock. I didn't know guns that well. If you didn't show me how to operate a semi-automatic, I wouldn't know how to. So we get to the range, and the one thing they impressed upon us day one was, you're used to doing this. You see my fingers are crossed over here like this? You do this with your revolver. You cannot do that with a semi. You got to move your thumb to the side because the slide's going to jack back and forth. And if you do this, the slide's going to hit your finger. And they kept drilling it in. Well, I had that Glock maybe a couple of months at that point. And what happens? I go down to the guy's tire, pop, pop, put two in his. I only fired two. Would I have fired more? Maybe. But it hit my finger. It took a little chunk of skin out of my thumb, and it jammed. Now I'm trying to remember. What was that tap, rack, bang shit, right? So I rack it. Obviously, when I racked it, a live round jumped out. I didn't even pay attention to that. I was just ready to go. Anyway, the kid, it scared the shit out of me, jumped out of the car. We collared him. Everything was good. We go back up to the 3-3. There was a guy. Did you ever hear his name, Louis Mineta?
I have, but I don't know why.
He was an old timer back then, but he was a super.
Yeah, I don't know the name.
He was one of the best duty captains you could ever want to show up and get you because he was a street cop. Big rack of medals. He'd been around.
What year was that?
1994.
Gotcha.
95. Yeah, 94, 95. I think it was the beginning of 95. So anyway, we go back up to the 3-3. And Mineta's up there. And I goes, the freak did you do? I went, it was a collar, you know. So Louis Mineta, we go through the whole thing. I tell him the whole story. He goes, downtown is calling. Here's what I didn't realize. I shot the car, right? We make the collar. The squad guy comes up. They had shut the highway down. Two very experienced gentlemen in suits and ties, right? These are guys that were cops maybe in the 60s, right? Listen, Sarge, you want? I'll say I saw him reaching. I was like, oh, no. See, one thing I'm not good at is lying. If I'm telling the truth, I'm the most confident man in the room. If I'm full of shit, I break like a house of cards. I know that about myself. So I said, no. I'm just going to call it what it is, you know? And he's like, it's not good. I'm like, what do you mean? I got my guys. We're clearing it up. We're going to get the car. We're going to get out of here. He goes, no, Cap. So I take a look. And I look. And there's a white shirt. Back then, only captains above wore white shirts, right? And a couple of guys in their dress uniforms. You know, the blouse. I'm like, the frig are they doing? He goes, that's Gracie Mansion. I was like, oh, holy shit. I'm working on the basic untold rules of Washington Heights in the 90s where it's like Beirut. There's gunfire everywhere, every night. This is how you do the job. And now I'm in front of Gracie Mansion and I didn't realize it. I'm like, let's get out of here. And we go flying back up to the Heights. Mineta's up there. He goes, John, downtown is calling. They want answers. This is an issue. So long story short, we didn't do a crime scene because back then, they were working on the interim order that said anytime a member of service fires around, you got to do a crime scene, right? That rule did not exist yet. Crime scene only showed up if someone was likely to die or dead. That was the parameter, the criteria for crime scene. Let me go down a side street here. I'm going to come back to that. Here's something about the guys like Anamone, Timothy, Julian. These men came from the street and all of a sudden they're running the department. They were brilliant. Here's what they said. Our closure rate when crime scene comes to a shooting is 30, 40 points higher than if crime scene doesn't come. So they come up with this bright idea. Well, let's have crime scene go to every shooting. And what they did next is what no one since has done. They turned to building maintenance and said, we want an office space in every borough. They turned to fleet services and they said, we need a fleet of cars for each borough. They turned to personnel. They said, we need training for crime scene people. We need detectives. Like they actually made it happen. They didn't lay down an edict, make this happen, and then walk away and yell when it didn't happen right. They actually built it. So this is what they did. But so anyway, back to where we were. There was no mandate to call a crime scene for this. So I left. And Mineta's, telling me downtown is very upset about this. They went back. They shut down the FDR and did a crime scene. I'm like, for what? Nobody got hit. Here's what happened. I'm telling Mineta I fired twice. He goes, now, another sidetrack. When we got those guns, the 9mm, if you were found to have put your magazine in and you did not rack it and then pull a magazine and replenish so you had 16 in your gun, you'd be disciplined for that. And the main reason why is this. Anytime I've been to a shooting, John, how many rounds did you fire? Eric, how many rounds did you fire? Your answer was always, I think 3. Like no one knows exactly how many rounds they fired. So we have a starting point at 16. We do the math. Okay, you fired 4. So Mineta, I fired 2. He goes, you're missing 3 rounds though. So they're down there with a crime scene looking for the 3rd round. And then I explained to him what happened with the thumb thing and everything. I said, maybe, a live round jacked out. Well, there's no way they're going to find that live round now. It's been an hour. Long story short, Louis Monaghan, here's what he does. He goes, they're going to crucify you. They think you're lying. You fired 3. I'm like, what difference does it make, 2 rounds or 3 rounds? The duty inspector's on his way up. They're not going to let Monaghan handle it. So he takes the clip out of his gun and he takes a bullet out. And he goes, this offer expires in 3, 2, 1. Again, I can't lie very well. I said, no, boss, no. He put the fucking round back in his clip, put it back in his gun. Duty inspector shows up. He has a flat-out shouting match with the man. He says, my guy. I was in the task force at the time, but we did a lot of work in the 3-3. And he pushed the duty inspector out of the picture. I'm handling this. That's what Monaghan was. Not a duty inspector. He has words with him. They're sending the duty chief up. We're into this a number of hours at this point. And he goes, kid, I think they're going to modify you. They think you're lying, this, that, and the other thing. And long story short, they didn't discipline me that day. They didn't take my guns. They didn't put me on modified, nothing like that. Monaghan was able to reason things out with them. They could see. I think, you get, and guys, you've had this with perps. You get a sense when the guy's not bullshitting you. You know what I mean? And I think they got that sense of not bullshitting. I fired twice. I racked it because it got jammed on my thumb. I saw a little nick on my thumb, Anyway, I go back to command. That's that. The next day, Neil Spadaro was my CO. He had a brother on the job too. I forget his first name. We're good guys. And he wasn't at work yet. I show up and I get dressed to do anti-crime. And the lieutenant was like, are you kidding me? Put your uniform on. All right. So me and my team go back in the locker room. We get dressed. We come back out. Spadaro shows up, the CO. He goes, why are you in uniform? Who told you? I said, He goes, no. Dress down. Until I get told otherwise, you go back out there. So we go out. We turn out. We get in the unmarked. We start heading up to the heights. Well, 5 minutes go by. 10-2 forthwith.
Sean, you had same gun? They didn't give you a different gun? Nothing?
No, they didn't take it. No, this was long before. There was no ballistics. Yeah. There was no. They tried to do a half-ass attempt at crime scene. This is back in '94. None of that shit. And no one got shot. You know what I mean? It was handled very differently. So I go back out and then 10-2 forthwith. Some little rat prick called the borough, but they sent Monaghan back out anti-crime. So the captain gets called, and the chief tells him, I'm questioning your judgment now, Neil. So anyway, back in I go. Now, here's how this all plays out. How it comes into the key. This was early '95. They give a lieutenant's test in '96. It had been 8.5 years since they gave a lieutenant's test. I smoked that freaking test because now, you know what, guys? I was at war with the job before I ever got hired. Remember I told you I had half a kidney and a arrest record? It took me 3 years to get hired. I was at war with the police department that I loved and hated before I even got hired by them. Now I'm a sergeant running around out there doing God's work, as we say, right? And now I'm going to freaking, because they can't hold me back. This is civil service. I'm going to ace that test. George was on here talking about, there's fewer and fewer people who can tell you what to do. I wasn't of that mind, but I was of the mind that you cannot stop my success. I mean, there were guys like Louis Monaghan and, like I said, Louis Anamone and John Timothy. They were good guys, but for every one of those, there was 10 shitbirds in rank. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you brought that up, though, John, because we often talk about that the test, it might not measure leadership, but it's the best way to just slice through nepotism and cronyism. And that's the point, is that you create your own destiny. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Create your own destiny, Eric. That's well said. That's exactly right. That's just what I was thinking. So I smoked that test. And the results, I know I'm going to be in the first group. So that was in, I think, May of '96, November '96. They make promotions at the holidays, right? So the Thanksgiving promotions are due. We're watching the teletype every day. When's it coming up, right? Myself and all the other guys that I knew who aced it as well. There were some real bright guys like Tommy Galati, Mike Shea. These are some really sharp guys. We all knew we aced it because we've been quizzing each other out on patrol the whole time. So the promotions come up and I'm not on it. I'm stunned. So a few other guys too, like, what the frig, I start making calls. Next thing you know, they're telling me you got to go down to this thing called CARB, C-A-R-B. You got to look. You've all been there, right? Career Advancement Review Board. You're not getting made. You come down as a triumvirate of 2 and 3-star chiefs, and you're going to sit down there, be grilled, and explain yourself to them. Like, oh, holy crap. So I missed the first group, right? What happened was this. They wanted me to get, now, that day with Louis Bonetta, they didn't put me on modified. They didn't do anything like that, right? But they decided you get charges. I'm like, all right, whatever. It takes a few months to draw up the charges, apparently, because it's got to go up 2 channels, down 2 channels, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know this, but 1 or 2 people along the chain were dragging their feet kind of on purpose because you know the law. 18 months after the wrongdoing was observed, if they don't charge you, they cannot charge you. I didn't know civil service law spoke to that. You cannot give charges after 18 months go by. So 18 months and a couple of days, and my CO sent the charges down. And the people in headquarters hit the freaking ceiling because they were pissed because I quote, got away with it. Meanwhile, there were good guys pulling for me, and that's why it got delayed. Because I didn't do a bad thing, you know. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, we collared the kid driving that car. I went down to the grand jury, testified. That driver of that car got indicted on a first-degree charge of reckless endangerment. And a DA kind of turned to me and goes, you could have shot him for all I could. So, like, the law was on my side. The Department of Regulations which were in flux at the time. Anyway, so that's why I got passed over. So I go down to Cobb, and they were very polite. They didn't really grill me at all. They said, all right, thanks for coming. I go out in the hallway, right? And my SBA guy is out there. He goes, listen, they're not promoting you. I'm like, what? He goes, when you go to Cobb, apparently it's a set thing. It's 6 months till you can come back, right? He goes, the captain's test is in 4 months. They're going to bring you back before that. They didn't want to ruin my career, but like he goes, they're going to bring you back before the test and just go back to your command, lie low, stay out of trouble, and you'll be back here in a few months. I'm like, all right. So I get in the car. We're down at headquarters, right? My office is up in the street crime building up on Rails Island underneath the Triborough Bridge. We go back. We get up there, exchange the tours, right? A couple old-time sergeants, a couple of new guys, McManus, these other guys, you know. Hey, it didn't go well. I'm like, nah. They said they'll bring me back. They said, yeah, but like, what, did you go over the desk at them or something? I'm like, what are you talking about? He takes a telephone message book. He goes, pushes it across. Doesn't say anything. Pushes it across. I look at it. Sergeant Monaghan. Now, listen, I live up here in Rockland County, right? You ever hear the shoestring transfer? I look at the telephone record book. Sergeant Monaghan transferred to the 8-8 precinct in Brooklyn. I couldn't believe my eyes. Shoestring transfer. You get a map of the tri-state area, put a pin where the guy lives, and you swing that string around. Let's send this prick all the way down here to the east end of Brooklyn. They sent me to the freaking 8-8. I couldn't believe my eyes, man. Very long story short, I actually said a prayer and decided, okay, I don't want to get derailed here. Some guys actually ran out of the room. They were afraid, like, was he going to throw the book across the room or through the window or something? Long story short, I marched into the 8-8 precinct the next morning at 0700 hours, and I signed that freaking logbook. PFD, right? Sergeant Monaghan, present for duty. ARCS had just started. Remember what ARCS, automated roll call system, had just started. So now in headquarters, at a glance, they could see who's where at any time. So it takes a while to finalize the ARCS at the desk. It was new. I'm at the 8-8. Neil Spadala did the right thing. I had a meeting set for 10 o'clock with the borough commander, Joe Dunn. If you remember that guy, went on to become the first dep. Super, super bright guy. He was the borough commander of Brooklyn North at the time. I was going to go meet him at 10 o'clock. My CO, Neil Spadala, had it all set up. So I go to the gym waiting. You know, I asked him to give me a car. I got to go to the borough, you know. And then this young rookie comes in. Are you Sergeant Monaghan? I went, yeah. He goes, there's a message for you at the desk. And he runs out of the gym. And I go up. They finalized the ARCS. And within minutes, I was transferred up to the 4-0 in the South Bronx. So, like, they were waiting to see, did I behave myself? Did I obey them? Like, you know what I mean? Now I'm up at the 4-0. I'm going around the clock. This is 97. My wife and I had twins in July of 96. Our third was born in August of 97. That's where I am personally. Now I'm going back around the clock in the 4-0 precinct as a sergeant with 8.5 years of rank, studying for a lieutenant's exam, studying for a captain's exam that I may or may not get to take. And the 4-0 was a dungeon on 138th Street. I would stand on the steps of that place, look diagonally across the street to St. Jerome's, realizing, my dad got to this country. That's where he went to school. Like I had a quiet motivation. Like you said, Eric, they're not going to take this from me. I'm the only one that can take this from me. If I respond badly, I'm going to lose this. And they're trying to take it from me, and I'm not going to let them. Like, that was my attitude, Anyway, I studied for the captain's exam, going around the clock on patrol as a sergeant. And they brought me back down to Cobb. And I went down, and I remember some of the guys. There was Chief Joe Leake. You ever meet him? What a gentleman. He was a tall black man that lived in the middle of Harlem, and he was such a classy guy. He's the guy that London fog overcoat was made for. He would wear that with his scarf and his uniform hat, and there was a few other chiefs on it, and this time they grilled me. They actually grilled me, and they asked me about every single element of that shooting and everything about it, and in the end, they promoted me the day before the captain's test.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know something? I said earlier, you got to leave your borough when you get made, right? So now I'm in the Bronx. I spent 8.5 years on the streets of Washington Heights like a crazy man, right? A lot of fun. And that pursuit began in front of the 3-3 precinct, where the 3-3 precinct was going to end up being. It wasn't there yet. I get made. I go down to headquarters. They had the orders on the chairs. You're all excited. Oh, where are they sending me, right? And, behind the scenes, I can tell you send a ghetto cop to a ghetto precinct. You send an inside guy to an inside place, I pick up the orders. Lieutenant Monaghan, transfer, 3-3 precinct. I thought, this is a misprint. I start looking around. Who's fucking with me? Someone put this here as a joke. There's no way they're sending me back to where that happened, to where that all started. 3-3 precinct is where I ended up. And I took that test 2 days later, and I freaking smoked it. I believe I wrote the highest score in the city on that captain's exam. And you know what my list number was? Because I had nothing to add to it. 3-3. 3-3. I'm in the 3-3. My list number is 3-3. Oh, my God. I could go on about the things that are miracles, I believe.
John, not to cut you off, but
Please.
You said you studied multiple times on here. I studied for sergeant. I studied for lieutenant. I studied for captain. When I was studying, when Eric was studying, we took the key. You founded the key. Was there any classes at the time you were studying? How'd you get your study routine? What was your study routine? What'd that look like? And then why did you? How did that lead into you finding the key? Like you said, that shooting led you into it.
Good. No, I'm glad you brought that up because it has got a lot to do with the founding of the key. I was a student. There were 3 classes out there at the time. John Timothy, who I mentioned, and Mike Julian. They had a school called I forget what it was called now, but
whatever. But they had a type of school, whatever.
They had a school, KSA. Sorry, KSA.
Oh,
stood
okay.
for knowledge, skills, and ability. So John Timothy ran KSA. There was another school called PTS, Police Tutorial Service, and it was run by George Mullins and Frank Connolly. I remember them very well, and they were such good teachers. And it wasn't just that they knew the material. If you asked them a question, even just sitting in the room, remember before I said, when someone's bullshitting you and when someone's not? Sitting in a room with PTS, George Mullins and Frank Connolly, I knew they cared. They had unlocked the secret to how to pass these tests, and they sincerely wanted to pass that on to us. That was the sense I got when I went to their classroom, and it motivated me even more. So I was a student of PTS, George Mullins, Frank Connolly, especially Mullins. I really liked him. So I just hung on their every word. I did everything that they said as far as their program they had. It was very similar to what the key is today. In fact, I modeled the key after PTS, to be honest with you. So I was their student, and I studied by going to class. They would have classes in cool places. I got married in a place. If you ever hear of Marina Del Rey in the Bronx, it's this glorious, beautiful venue. Right?
I've been there many times. Nice spot.
Well, let me tell you, this is where I got married. I tell people, you go to the Marina Del Rey, don't enter the gate, make a right, go down to the end of the street, and there's a place called the Trogsnet Country Club. That's where I got married.
It's still there.
It's
It's still beautiful. Still nice.
Yeah. Well, PTS had their classes there at the Trogsnet Country Club, the place I got married in. And you could order a cheeseburger during class, and it was just a great thing. And you know what, too? There was camaraderie. You'd see guys from the academy, see guys from your NSU, and we're all in class. It was actually fun. But once they banged the gavel and get started, I was zoned in on them, man. They were great teachers, and I studied real hard. And they were motivating because they were good men and they cared about us, So what happens? Now I'm in a 3-3. I smoked that freaking test, right? And now I'm the ICO. Jaffe was the CO. She made me her ICO. There's so many stories I could tell. Some of them I really probably shouldn't, But good stuff. I was a good ICO. I'll tell you what. If I caught you red-handed, right, on something that the job would crucify you for, but I deemed that you made a stupid mistake, like you just weren't thinking or you didn't realize what you were doing, I wasn't going to send that up the pipe to the job. I was going to sit you down and explain to you what happened here. You know what I mean? And but if you were slick, I'd nail your ass, right? And people who are working, they come to appreciate that. I was a good ICO. And I had a lot of fun in the 3-3. I'll tell you a quick story. Can I keep telling stories before I get to the
floor is yours.
No,
This is your day.
we're listening, John.
The ICO's office in the 3-3, it was a busy shop, as you can imagine, right? The trio had just blown up. Remember Dirty 30 and all that crap that had just resolved?
Is that why Banana left?
Huh?
Is that why Banana left? Because
that what?
You talked about Minetta and you talked about the 3-0. Is that why Minetta left the job?
It may have had something to do with that. Yeah. When the Captain's List came out and I was number 33 on it, I still had 2 years to wait and rank before I could get made because of the Passover, right? And I still remember Louis Minetta. It was me and 2 other guys, Jack Donahue, who went on to become a 3-star chief, and forget the other guy's name. He sat us down. He goes, you know what, fellas, make a decision now whether you're going to get on a career track and go for chief or you're not. Make the decision now and don't vary from it once you get made. Because he was a guy that waffled. He was a captain for 10 years. Super good guy, but they were never going to make him because he had a whole carousel full of baggage. You know what I mean? And I never forget that he said that. And then you know what I decided? I realized my children were 1 and 2 years old at this point. And that the title chief and dad were mutually exclusive. I had to choose one. I was going to try not to get emotional. I chose dad. But anyway, where were we? Back in the 3-3.
You're the ICO. Okay, Ralph says you were a great ICO, a bit of a consigliere, if you will.
Ralph, let me tell you something about Ralph Salento. We're going to get more into Ralph Salento and Paul McCormick and George Mifsud, these freaking guys. Let me tell you something. If Paul McCormick decides that he would come on this podcast, you guys better get ready for some blowback because he's got stories to tell. He was a young, brash, unapologetic precinct commander, and all the young cops loved that shit, right? But he didn't. He was very respectful, but he didn't bow to the powers that be at the borough and such, right? He was at war with them, and he won the freaking war. The guy was amazing. But anyway, I digress. So we're in a 3-3. Yeah, quick story. My office was in the back of the precinct, and there was a door, looked like a closet, but if you open it, you're in the arrest process room. So, guys are BSing with their overtime, and they're taking 8 hours. They should have taken 4. ICO, that's part of my thing, right? So I would open up the door, step in, and boom. And like, oh, shit, the ICO's here. Well, you remember Snoo back in the day, Snoo. First, you got to go set up an OP. And it takes a long time. You got to get there early before the bad guys are out. You got to sneak your people up there. Once you get it set, you don't want to break it down until you get a couple of collars going, right? So they would go, we called it warehousing. They'd make a collar, run them into the house. And in a 3-3, there was always a bunch of guys in there processing arrest. Hey, listen, John, do me a favor. Watch my prisoner. I'll be back. And they run back out to the set. And they would do this 2 and 3 times. So I'd pop in there. Who's prison? Well, where's the AO? And they'd all look like this. It's Snoo. So this new sergeant, maybe I should mention some names, but these are some wild mother effers, man. I'm talking like Mookie. Do you know who Mookie is?
The floor is yours, brother. Any name you want, the floor is yours.
Here's a guy you need to have on, Mookie. I don't know if I'll say it. Mike Mulcahy was an SBA delegate. He was my SBA delegate the day I shot the car. Couldn't ask for a better man to be sitting next to me, man. Yeah. Anyway. And then there was Eddie O'Brien, and there was some great guys up there. So here's what I did one day, because I would tell them, listen, fellas, you got to stop this warehousing shit. You lose a prisoner, it's my ass, your ass or whatever. So one day I go into the arrest process room. Who's prison? No. Where's this new guys? You don't know? This prisoner is sitting here on account, unaccompanied, if you will. So I cuff him up. I take him in my office and I wait. And this new guy comes back. He's like, he thinks this prisoner escaped. And the guys in the arrest process room, I told him, don't you freaking tell him I took his prisoner. Long story short, I hit his prisoner on him till he finally came looking. And I gave him back his prisoner. I said, that's the end of you warehousing people, So anyway, I'm doing a double this night. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. The place is pretty quiet, right? It was busy earlier, but now it's quiet. We took a whole bunch of prisoners down to subject booking. And this new guy walks by my office. He goes, hey, how you doing, Lou? Hey, what's up? No, nothing. He kept going. He comes by again a minute later. He pokes his head in. You got something belonging to me? I'm like, what are you talking about? He lost a freaking prisoner. A prisoner escaped on him. And he thought he was hoping maybe I took the guy from him, I said, oh, holy crap, man. I shouldn't even tell this, but if I'm ever asked about it, I'll say I was making this up, okay? I said, all right, look, I'm on a captain's list. He's on a lieutenant's list, and his cop, the AO, is on a sergeant's list. All three of us ready to get promoted within the next year. Long story short, I said, what do you got this guy for? He was just a nickel bagger. Bullshit little thing. I said, all right, so was it small enough he had vouched it already? I said, so that's a small enough amount. You could give him a summons? He goes, yeah. I said, all right, write the summons. Throw that plot in the garbage. Go out to the command log. Make a margin entry. You know what I mean, John? A margin entry, right? Released on summons number. That's one option. The other option is I'm going to blow the lid off this. The duty captain's going to come up here and you're going to get one stuck up your ass, both of you. And that poor prick on a desk who's over there making command log entries right now as we speak has no clue he's going to get one too. You got 2 minutes to make up your mind and we're back in my office. Because these were good cops. They were good guys who were working out there. You know what I mean? They come back in and they decided it was too much of a risk. I said, okay, good. I was kind of relieved myself. And that, listen to the end of this story. You're not going to freaking believe this. We blow the lid off it, right? By the time the duty captain got to the precinct, I had the 49 written for him. All he had to do was sign it. He appreciated that. Kind of greased the skids. They all got hits, though. Everybody got a hit. The next day, like I said, I did a double. That was the middle of the night. I'm home sleeping. Early afternoon. My house phone rings. Now, you know how it is, guys. Cell phones had come into the play these days. And you didn't call a guy's house phone unless the shit was really hitting the fan, right? I pick it up. It's the SU sergeant. I'm like, what's up? He goes, that guy? He just went upstairs to the squad with his lawyer to turn himself in. Holy shit. Could you imagine if we'd made that margin entry? We'd have been screwed beyond belief. The guy showed up with his lawyer the next day and surrendered. Holy shit. Thank God we went the proper route. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's the shit that went on in the 3-3. But so here's what happened. I smoked the test, right? Even though I'm up against it. And a lot of people knew that, what I was in the middle of, right? So one or two guys, there's a test. This was 97 going on to the beginning of 98, right? They scheduled the sergeant's test and the captain's test for 99. Guys started showing up in my office like, hey, how'd you figure that shit out? What about juveniles? What about this? So I started explaining it to guys. It ends up like I'm tutoring them almost, right? Next thing you know, from 2, 4, my office wasn't big enough. All these guys were showing up to hear about how do you do this on the test. And then a light bulb went off. Why don't I just start a business doing this? Like PTS, like KSA. That's where the light bulb went off in my head. Now, I'm going to shorten this story and let you know this. I decided to do this. And I went and I rented a room at Fordham University. Because you know what? Like, this is an academic endeavor. We're street cops. Most of us don't know how to study. Back then, there was no educational mandates yet. There was no educational mandates to get hired yet. We didn't know the first thing about how to study. I had learned how to study. I became very good at it. And I realized that's what I'm going to be teaching these guys. This is an academic. So I got a room at Fordham University. Jack Dunny was my first partner. I'm going to tell you about how I met Paul McCormick. I couldn't get the guys, my generation, to join me. Either they had burned their books and were sick and tired of studying, or they just didn't. I don't know what. I mean, guys like Mike Shea and a few other really bright guys. So what happened was this. I started this thing all by myself. Jack Dunny ended up going to law school. You didn't have the time, so we had to part ways. And day one for the key, let me just tell you how day one happened. I make up this flyer, and I said I got passed over for a shooting. I was sergeant for 9 years, and now I'm going to teach these classes. Fellas, I lost 15 pounds driving to every single command in New York City, myself, on my time, hanging up flyers, posters, talking to the guys on the desk. Every single command, every PSA, every transit district, every precinct, narcotics, every place. I lost 15 pounds. I ran around so much in the course of a week or so, hanging up these flyers. Day one, Fordham University, I rented a room, 12 guys showed up. I was over the moon, and 12 people even decided to show up. My mother and father working at the door. Richie Fernandez was my assistant ICO, super good guy, Sergeant Rich Fernandez. He was there, helped me out. And then those 12 guys, I gave them such a good class. I explained juveniles in a way they never heard it said before, developed an acronym that was brand new to the market. And they left and they preached the gospel, baby, because next week there was 24 and the following week there was 48 and the word spread. This guy, holy shit. And you know what the motto of the key is to this day, like you said, Eric, almost 30 years later? The school founded with your success in mind. Think back what I said about George Mullins. He cared. He cared. He wanted to help us. He saw the machine and he realized you can't beat that freaking machine, but you can make it anyway. You can make it on your own terms, like you said, Eric. And that's what this was about.
Right.
Me, I knew how to get this done. And I'm going to show you how to get it done. And that comes across in the classroom. And guys loved it. It started to grow. And now I lost 20 pounds. And I realized I was working 24 hours straight through. Then I would sleep for 6, do another 24, because I had to give the job their 8 hours, right? It was to the point where I needed help. And I knew I needed help. Now let me tell you about Paul McCormick. This is unbelievable. When I got made, there was a group of guys 5 years behind us who got made provisionally. Remember, they could make a group before the list came out, and they were considered provisional. That's what happened with these guys. And they didn't get made in time to take the captain's test. They weren't gonna, because they had time in rank, but some of it was provisional time. Very long story short, they sued, they won. Let's say there was 80 of us getting made lieutenant the day before the captain's test. 40 of my guys, my contemporaries, got knocked out of the box to accommodate 40 of these young guys. So right out, we're a B mark, and you could visibly see the line right down the hallway during the breaks. The young guys over there, and us guys over here. We didn't like what they did, and they had that young, brash, F you attitude. Now there's a test coming up. So we're all talking about the ins and outs of the details of studying. What about this? What do you think of that? Da, da, da. First time, someone introduced me to this little Irish guy, had a thick brogue, and the first conversation I ever had with him was an argument. That's not what that means. It means this. We start fighting over the patrol guy. This was Paul McCormick. This is how I met Paul McCormick. So now fast forward, I start the key. I'm running around. I'm losing my mind. I realize this thing has potential. It's starting to grow. I need help. I was like a one-man band. You know, I had a monkey on my shoulder, a cymbal, and a drum. I'm doing all these things myself. I get in touch with Paul McCormick. Actually, Jack Dunny put me in touch with Paul McCormick. I said, that little Irish break? He goes, John, he's bright and he's motivated. So I called Paul. And the rest is history, man. Let me just tell you, that guy has got more energy and more balls. You know what Jimmy Shea used to say all the time? There's courage. And then there's courage. Like there's street courage, that's one thing. But administrative cowardice runs rampant in bureaucracies. You don't have the balls to sit a guy down and tell him, look, this is what you did wrong. This is what I'm going to do to you about it. They don't have the balls for this stuff. Anyway, Paulie McCormick, we became partners. And it grew and it grew and it was working. And then I realized I had tried so many different guys teaching. Kevin Clark. Remember Kevin Clark? He was my CO in a 4-7. Super good guy, black guy. He became the CO in narcotics. He became the police commissioner of Baltimore. He could hold a room's attention. This man had a presence. We had him teach. We had this guy, Vinny DiDonato. I don't know if you remember him. I think that was his name. Vinny something from Brooklyn. He taught the CIC course. He taught the homicide course. We had all these different guys. I had this guy, Vinny. They loved him in Brooklyn. They didn't like him in the Bronx. Then I had Clark. They loved him in the Bronx. They didn't like him in Brooklyn. And I started seeing something. And I used to joke with people. Bronx, Manhattan is one department. Brooklyn, Queens is another. It may as well be Philadelphia or Cleveland to me, Kevin Ward was a man I never met, but I'd heard about. He was one of those, like there was Mike Shea, John Monaghan, Kevin Ward. There was a handful of people that had reputations as being real smart with the books, real good with the tests, right? Kevin Ward was a name I had heard in that lexicon, right? Some student comes up to me in class and goes, "Hey, boss, I got to tell you, this thing you wrote here, my boss told me that's the best explanation he's ever seen." I went, "Oh, who's your boss?" He goes, "Kevin Ward." I went, "Oh, I've heard of that guy." I said, "Do me a favor, have him get in touch with me." Next thing you know, Kevin comes to class. Paulie and I cut a deal. "Kevin, you run Brooklyn, Staten Island, and Queens. You take a cut of whatever that jet." So now here we go. Now we're growing. And building. Kevin Ward, he's got a law degree. He's got the same degree from Harvard that I have. Now we've got Frank Vega, the borough commander of Staten Island. Anthony Russo, number one on 3 tests. Who does that? Kevin Ward brought in some of the brightest guys I've ever dealt with, right? Paul McCormick is our operations guy. Everything gets done. Renting rooms, paying the rent, hiring doormen, this and that, getting the delivery to lesson plan. Paulie is the guy. And now, Ralph Salento. Let's talk about Ralph freaking Salento. He was a White Shield cop at a 3-3 during those SNU days. He was on that SNU team. He was one of those guys whose prisoners I was kidnapping, right? When they locked him up, I was furious. I couldn't freaking believe it. I knew it was bullshit. Everyone knew it was bullshit. And they locked this guy up. I had just gotten made captain like a month before that. Ralph was a student at the Key. I started the Key November 17th, 1998. It was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. That was the first class up at Fordham. Ralph was a student. And I used to pay a doorman $30, $40, whatever it was, sit at the door, hand out the lessons. And you had to stay at the door. Guys come in late. I'm teaching. I needed a guy on the door, right? And then that also entailed go take delivery of next week's lessons, bring them to class. Ralph gets locked up. I had been his ICO, man. I was freaking furious that they did this to this guy. A good guy, good street cop. Hey, slap someone around. That ain't freaking. It was a bullshit column. Anyway, a couple of days after he gets arrested, he shows up at class. And he looks me in the eye, "Eric, John, you know what he said? I forget his exact words, but what we've been talking about here the past hour, he goes, they're not going to stop me." I was like, holy shit, have a seat at the door. You now work for the Key. Ralph's been working for the Key since he was a White Shield cop. You're the doorman. You're not paying for classes anymore. And Ralph, he joined the Key right then and there. And the rest you could say is history. And now, for a long time, Kevin Ward, like I say, is an attorney. He's got a degree from Harvard. I have a degree from Harvard. We had a red line. You have to have aced your captain's test, not just passed it. Aced your captain's test before you could teach for us. Has to be. Ralph Salento makes lieutenant. Ralph Salento's teaching the freaking homicide course. He's teaching the CIC course. You ever see this guy teach a class? He is just all that. He's like George. You ever see George? These guys are fantastic.
I can only imagine. Ralph is amazing. Ralph and George are amazing.
He taught a few of my classes.
Yeah,
Ralph.
Yeah.
I think one of my sergeants. I think one class he taught. Not a lot because I always wanted to Staten Island. I think one time he came.
Remember, the motto of the Key is the school founded with your success in mind. Ralph feels that way. George feels that way. They wouldn't be with me if they didn't. It's all about we can beat the machine. Here's how. That's really what this is about. So now Ralph approaches me a couple of years later, and he's CO major case. He's teaching all these classes. People from around the country are coming to hear this guy teach the homicide investigators course. He goes, "I want to teach for you." I'm like, "Ralph, you got to be a captain." Because I'm not taking the freaking captain's test. I want nothing to do with that realm of our organization, right? So I approached my partners. I'm not so sure, And I said, "Well, let's give him a shot." He impressed everybody. I mean, listen, anyone out there that's thinking of taking the sergeant's test and you're trying to decide what school to go to, are you kidding me? You got to come. I'll tell you what, take the other guy's class if you want, but come and take one class for us. One class for us. And you'll see why we are absolutely the best in the business. Absolutely the best in the business. Now,
wait, John, I don't want to cut you off your thought, but we got to do an ad for the key, and this is a special ad from Ralph Select.
Oh, is this okay? Right,
this is a special ad. That he sent over.
Okay, wait. Let me sum it up.
Obviously, people, that this episode is brought to you by the Key, the NYPD's premier promotional school, right? So use code Finest Unfiltered. That code's going to expire at the end of this week. Finest Unfiltered, $6.99. You get $150 off. But this is an ad specifically from Ralph Select.
Okay, wait. Before you play it, John, let me just set this up. It's going to take me 2 minutes, but let me do it, all right?
Go ahead.
When I was a student at PTS and I would go to KSA for their crams, I started this business. Remember, I had 12 guys at Fordham, right? I reached out to George Mullins, John Timoney, and there was another class, I forget their name, Pass. It used to be Mulhern. There was a guy named Mulhern that started that business, and he sold it to these other guys. I called all three of them to say, like a gentleman, listen, I'm going to try and enter the arena here, you know? And George Mullins from PTS, Mike Julian from KSA called me back. They both called me back, gentlemen. They said, you know what, kid, good luck to you. There's plenty of room in here for all of us. I was so impressed. Pass, they never called me back. So that's how I see my competition. Now you fast, because we had your success in mind, and PTS and KSA, they had your success in mind as well. When I was a student, I felt that. Now fast forward, this other business starts up. All they had in mind was their own success. I really felt that. And now today, the only competition we have is the remnants of that other business where their only real desire was for themselves to be successful. I don't know these guys that well. But so that other guy, I tend to ignore him because he's not a good, I don't think he's a good guy. I don't think he has the same motivations. So I tend to ignore that and just stay focused on our thing, you know. My partners, George or Ralph, everybody like, oh, bad mouthing the guy. I'm like, whatever, I don't care. The guy puts up an ad just the other day, and he's going to have some kid who's not on a job teach the classes to his son. I thought that's the most. Everybody in the business is like, are you kidding? You remember before I said you had to have aced your captain's test before you could teach for me? I made an exception for Ralph because Ralph is all freaking that. So that's the setup. They're making fun of what that guy's trying to do, right? With bringing his son on to teach. He's not even on the job, let alone pass the test. So that is the atmosphere in which this video gets made. Go ahead, John.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to The Key and another edition of Key by the Numbers. I'm coming to you today with a special video because I'm so excited. I have this great news to share with you. When the sergeant's courses start, I can't even believe I'm going to say this. It's so exciting. My 24-year-old daughter is going to teach the classes. And you know what? She's never been a cop. She's never stood roll call and doesn't carry a gun. But it's all cool. And let me tell you why. Because she has my last name, and I gave her the copy of the patrol guide. That's all you need.
Preparation is the key.
You know what? It's going to be so great. You know what? I can't do this anymore. April Fools, people. We don't do this at the Key. I'll see you at the courses. Peace, everyone.
You gotta love Ralph.
April Fools, everyone. Guys,
John.
let me tell you, that was the second take because on the first take, I didn't know he was doing it. I was sitting right behind. He's got 4 daughters. Ralph is a Superman. All right, not
He's
just
awesome.
a Superman. He's a Superman. He's got 4
He's
daughters.
awesome.
And we're all sitting around in the room. He goes, hey, watch this. And he had it all planned. He had to do a second take because on the first take, I burst out laughing out loud, and you could hear it in the background on the video. Oh, my God. So April Fool's there, huh? Yeah.
Hey, John, that's like, can you imagine being the police commissioner of the biggest police department and not being a cop?
Well, yeah, right.
It's
You know
not
what I
possible.
tell people, Eric, it's funny. I liken it to the United States government. Think about this. The 4-star, head of our military, right? The Joint Chiefs of Staff, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is the gun guy.
Oh, yeah.
But above him is the civilian elected leadership, right? Kind of similar. We have our 4-star chief. He's got a gun, but above him is the civilian leadership. It's almost a similar structure, if you will. Listen, we had police commissioners that were not members of our department, and they were pretty good. Then we had ones that weren't. I did going all the way back to Bob McGuire. I heard he was pretty decent. Bill Bratton was a cop, but not NYPD. He was very good, right? Safer. A lot of people say good and bad, you know. But yeah, that's interesting. But now you talk about police commissioners. 2 police commissioners worked for me as instructors with the key. Dermot Shea, who went on to become the police commissioner at NYPD, and his brother Jimmy, who's the police commissioner, actually above police commissioner. He's a deputy mayor of public safety in Jersey City for a very long time. Anyway, so yeah, that's Ralph, man. That's
Listen, Ralph is
and that's
phenomenal.
just there's an atmosphere in the room. Not just that we give a shit, but that we're going to get this done, and it's going to be fun. You know what I mean? It's just a great class. And John, what you said about the offer for your listeners, $699. I almost argued with the guy and said, well, that's too much. That's way too low. It's an $800 and some odd dollar course. You know, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And I'm glad that we're doing it. Yeah.
John, I just want to say, listen, it's an hour and 5 minutes into it. I want to tell everyone, like, share, and subscribe. This episode is sponsored by The Key. And if you're a cop right now in the NYPD, do not miss this episode, because Captain retired John Monaghan is the founder of The Key, and everyone on your team, that's why I said, is super charismatic. And I can see why, because and that's why I always say how important it is with leadership. It starts with the leadership, and you're charismatic. That's why you have an awesome team. I just want to ask you, right? So I speak to a lot of cops right now who think about getting promoted. What do you say to the cop who gets on the job? He is a college graduate, but time goes by, maybe 5, 6, 7 years till he finally has an opportunity to take the sergeant's test. Hasn't been in a classroom in many years. What do you say to that guy? What kind of approach? You know, they're busy with kids, a family. They haven't been in school in years. How do they get back into the game of learning and being in the classroom and studying? What's the approach, and what worked for you?
It's funny, Eric. I know that you did very well on your test. You were number 60-something on your list. When over
69
people made your list. 69.
Yeah.
You know, you
I said
something. Part of your question is very telling. You said, how do I get back into the learning? Because, guys, today there's educational mandates in place. You need 64 credits to get hired by this job, unless you have military background, right? Don't think that your experience in college and earning those 64 credits, what you had to do, how you applied yourself, your mind to gaining those credits is going to serve you well here. It's not. This is very, very different. That's number one. It's a very different type of exam from anything you've taken. Eric, there are people, practicing members of the New York State Bar, who have not been able to pass the lieutenant's exam. CPAs, practicing CPAs, members of our department, who have not been able to pass the lieutenant's exam. These tests are unlike anything you've taken before. It's a very specific type of material, very specific type of question. And as far as having a busy life, I told you my story. Okay. I lost 20 pounds doing this. If you want it bad enough, you'll do what it takes. But let's be realistic. You got your family. You don't want to get too crazy with this. Carve out a place in your day. You've got to be consistent. It's like getting in shape. It's like running a marathon. My wife ran a marathon. I watched her train. You don't start running 10 miles a day. You get there eventually, right? And you know what, Eric, build on this. If you're too busy, and I'm telling you, give it 2 hours, 2.5 hours is our physical class each week. 2.5 hours, 1 week. 2.5 hours a week is not a lot. But you got to follow that up with another hour or 2 hours here and there throughout the week. It's like this. Day of the test, you're going to walk into a location and you're going to sit your ass down into a very uncomfortable chair, most probably. And you're going to stay in that chair for 6 hours without getting up and think that you're going to make clear and concise decisions on this exam. You're out of your mind. You have to physically train. You know what a big deal it is to get up and go to the bathroom during one of these tests? You got to raise your hand, be acknowledged by the proctor. Then, there's going to be a uniformed captain in the hallway. Oh, captain, we got another one. Well, you got to go to the bathroom. All right, come on. And he's going to walk you down the hall to the bathroom. Like it's a big deal getting out of your chair. So you got to sit your ass down. And you know what's going to happen? Here's exam. It's like I'm teaching the class now. You're going to sit down and start studying. Going through this, going through that, going through this. And some's going to spark your memory of a call you had last week or something stupid somebody said the other day. And your mind's going to start to wander. And when you catch yourself wandering, realizing you're doing that, now look at the length of your attention span. Once you're aware of the length of your attention span, now, only now, can you begin to expand it. And now you do that with your body. You're going to be sitting in that chair, and after a few minutes, like you said, Eric, we're here for an hour and 5. I want to go have a cigarette. I want to have some more coffee, right? You want to get out of your chair after a while. Okay, stop. Write down the time. How long have I been sitting still before the urge to get up hit me? Now you're aware of that. Now you can expand on that because you're going to want to sit down. So what I'm getting at is there's a physical aspect to your training for these exams. And if you engage in the physical aspect and focus your mind on all material, here's the key method. Read the patrol guide procedure once. Don't read it twice. Just read it once. Be familiar with the structure of the procedure. The actors are in the margin. There's documentation steps. There's notification steps. There's going to be property vouchers, whatever. Read it once. Put it aside and come to the key lesson plan. Listen to George's video. Listen to Ralph's by the numbers video. Then come to class, and brother, it's going to be snapping out like this on a day of the exam. When they ask a stupefied question, it's going to jump right off the page of you. You're going to get it right. That's how you do this. So, busy life, give me 2.5 hours a week to start. Give yourself an hour once or twice a week after that. You got a year. Build on that slowly. Build on that slowly. Like I said, when you train for the marathon, like my wife did, she got up to that 10-mile run after a few months, a month or so before the marathon. So build yourself up. Give us a 2.5-hour class once a week, Eric, and then an hour more, maybe twice a week on top of that. That's not that much. I don't care how busy you are, you can do that. And then build slowly on that. Build slowly on that. Yeah, that's the formula for this.
Oh, it's like working out, dude. 100%. I'm reading. I'm reading the Lexout committee. It was the first look into NYPD corruption. It started 1894 to 1898. It's 4 volumes. They're like 1,600 pages each. And I haven't read in 4 years, but I was good when I was studying. I was sitting down. My brain was good. When I first started reading all of these books, my attention span was like 15 minutes where I could sit there and go like this. And now that I've been into it, and by the way, I say 2 hours a day. That's what I did for all my exams. 2 hours a day, you pass that exam. That is it. If you dedicate yourself 2 hours a day, every day, you are passing that exam. Nobody's taking that from you. Right. But now that I've been doing that, I've been doing it now because I'm in the process of writing a book also. And I know that you're an author. We'll get into that. But now that I've been doing that about 2 hours a day, my attention span, I could sit there for like a solid 45 minutes before my brain starts to wander, because you have to build up to it. And even that, I say, should be better if you're in the process of studying. But it took a while to get up to that because it's a learned skill. And then once you stop doing it, you lose it, just like running, just like working out, you know?
It's exactly like that. Yeah. Yeah. And something interesting you said, John, it's not what level you're at. It's, are you making progress? And you're making progress. That counts for everything. Then you're doing it right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm excited for this test. I am. I can't wait to get in front of the classroom and rev these guys up. It's about motivation. And honestly, like I said so many times already, and you pointed it out too, guys, we have a team of guys that care. They know how to do this, and they're going to show you how to do this. We liken it to physical fitness. And John, who better than George? You see the cut on that guy? I call him The Rock. He looks like The Rock, doesn't he?
He looks great.
Yeah,
he looks great.
Yeah. So yeah.
John, I think I read a lot of different books, but I read the books by Steve Jobs, and he always talks about how a system is so important to have in place. It's even more important than the people to be successful. And you've now had success for nearly 30 years doing this. What systems do you have in place that have been the key to success, and what patterns have you noticed or observed with these tests that you use that are tools for your students to have success?
Attention to detail. I was a CO MODS when I retired. MODS, management, the unit that published intramotors and maintained the patrol guide. And it was a very, very strict process. It was almost like illegal to change one character in that book without documenting it and publishing it on an intramotor. There was a process. And when I retired, of course, every intramotor that would come out, I would scrutinize it, down to the letter. Go to my patrol guide, adjust it accordingly. Go to my lesson plans, adjust it accordingly. Here we are all these decades later. They're doing stuff down there with the patrol guide. If they make a mistake, early on, I had still people in place. Like Jack was a 3-star. I could call this guy, that guy, say, look, they made a mistake in the patrol guide. You fix this. We would, when I was down there, we would come up with what was called a -1 intermortar. I don't know if you remember that. Like intermortar 17 comes out, right? There's a mistake in it, or there's an update. Intermortar 17-1 would come out saying adjust, not the patrol guide, adjust the intermortar, right? They stopped doing that. And now I see a mistake, and you know what they do? They go in and they fix the mistake, and they don't put it in an intermortar. Drives me nuts, because now my lesson plan for the key says ABC, and the patrol guide says ADE. I'm like, whoa, what? When did they make that change? They're sneaking shit. Attention to detail. As I said, these exams are unlike any other. And what's carried us forward is our attention to detail. When I finalized the lesson plan, they just came out with First Amendment, disorder control. Matter of fact, Chapter 213 in the patrol guide was called disorder control. And it was into 213 that we put our First Amendment demonstration response. And they said, oh, no, wait, we got to take that out of disorder control because that's not disorder. It's politically correct way of looking at it now. So it's not in 213 now, it's a 221 operations, special operations. So long story short, like body-worn cameras. They came out with those things a few years ago, 15 fucking pages. They tell a cop how to use his camera? Come on. These orders are ridiculous. So I go through that and I transform that into something you can study from. You can't study from the patrol guide. The patrol guide is not a student's document. Our material is the textbook to the patrol guide. So I would take that 15 pages and transform it into something that you can learn, something that I can teach. And there's a lot of now, once I complete that process, now I send it to Kevin Ward. He sends it to Anthony Russo. He sends it to Frank Vega. And then George gets it. And freaking George is an eagle-eyed guy. John, it should be a comma. You got a period. Like, holy shit, how did you see that? Content, layout. I get, like I said, Anthony Russo, one of the brightest guys that's ever taken a promotion exam in the NYPD. Frank Vega, he is explicitly the best reviewer I've ever seen. George, eagle-eyed. These guys go through the lessons when I create them, and we perfect them. Because, like I said before, it is a game of exactness. Every letter matters. And then when they ask these questions, you should see my lesson plans. They ask these freaking questions. There's this famous one. I'll give you as an example. I think it's the pregnancy procedure. Fax and mail this document to like the medical district, right? The next procedure, fax or mail, one or the other. On a freaking day of the test, they switch and for or. Which the farm is incorrect. Fax or mail. It should have said fax and mail. And that was the answer to the question. This is what's going to dictate if you get on the freaking promotion list or not. Did it say and or? Holy shit. So the exactness of their tactics leads to the exactness of our effort. It's a lot of pressure. I work on these documents almost every day. An intermortar comes out, at least a few times a week. And I'm very, very precise, very, very exact. And then I send it through the hopper of all the review process. Like I mentioned those guys before, super good guys. And we do our best to get it exactly right. Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's honestly, I'll tell you what's frustrating too. I'll go 3 years engaging in a process I just described, busting my ass for absolutely no income. Not until a class starts up. I just spent the last 4 years busting my hump. Body-worn cameras, First Amendment, all this stuff, breaking it down, and there's no test in sight. But thank God, as you said, I got some high-energy guys. All my reviewers, I send it to them. They go through it. There's no test coming up, but they go through it. They do their jobs. Fantastic group of guys. Yeah, you see the picture on our website.
That's interesting, though. I never realized so many intermortars. I mean, I realized intermortars. You said one comes out every day. I never realized so many come out.
Well, no, it's not every day. Like right now, we're up to, last year, usually about 120 or so a year. We're up to number 23 or something right now. I could check my records. I think we're up to number 23 right now. Most years it's about 100. But you know what? One of them will come out and it affects the organizational guide. I could care less. I'll read it once. I won't even put it into my lesson, right? Then, like I said, one will come out, First Amendment procedures, but Jesus Christ, it'll take me 3 working days to get through one interval. It feels like one a day. It's not. There's about 100 a year, I'd say, to come out. But some of them are monstrous, Yeah.
So every day an interim order comes out, you guys are revising all your material, regardless. There's a sergeant's test, a lieutenant's test, a captain, doesn't matter. So
That's right.
you're always in the background doing this work. That's a large endeavor, man. That is.
It really is. We put so much effort. This is not, I feel very confident. Like I said before, if I'm telling the truth, I'm the most confident guy in the room. I get on a witness stand. I'm an expert witness. I can walk into court in front of a judge and a jury and tell them exactly what police policy and procedures should be in this case. Was it followed properly? Yes. Because I know what knowledge is power when it comes to this. Knowledge truly is power. If I know what I'm talking about, I'm very confident. If I'm not sure, I start shaking, man. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to ask you, John, what do you think? What do you think? I'm not sure on this. But so when it comes to the patrol guide, you got to be absolutely certain you know what you're talking about. And the only way to do that is to do this work. You've got to do this work.
John, I happen, listen, I don't think I was the greatest student, but I think I had a lot of capability. And I think I didn't realize how much, I have to be honest, I didn't realize how much potential I had in school until I actually started taking these tests, because I really felt those classes showed me how to apply myself, especially having George and Ralph and these guys. The classes were so great and really got me to want to learn. But I also found that some of the guys I worked with, some of the most intelligent guys on the job I've ever worked with, couldn't pass a test. Took it 2 and 3 and 4 times, could not pass it. Some of those guys were extremely intelligent. Could you? Why does that seem to happen? Could you explain that? Because there were some guys I worked with were super intelligent. I mean, extremely smart cops, but they could not break that barrier of the Sarge exam, and they were just. I mean, some guys that are brilliant. What are your thoughts on that?
Training. I remember as a kid, I was in this summer camp one year, and there were European kids, a few of them. And this one guy was a soccer star, super athlete. We're playing softball. He looked like such a dork. He didn't know what to do with that freaking bat. He's like this. I mean, he looked uncoordinated and unathletic because he did not know how to swing a bat. Best athlete you'd ever want to run against. Same thing here. George, Ralph, me, Kevin, Paulie, Frank, Anthony. We know the specifics of how to apply this specific book to that specific test. You need to be trained by us on the app. You can have I say this in class all the time. It's one of my favorite lines. Could you be possessed of the knowledge necessary to answer a question correctly and still get it wrong? Yes, happens all the time. And that's how those smart guys, Eric, didn't make it. There's the application of your knowledge to this specific type of exam. Here's an example, one of my favorites. The knowledge I'm going to test you on, I say to them in the classroom, is, do you make an AIDA card for a prisoner? And everybody look at each other like, of course. Everybody knows the answer to that. You knew that after 2 days in the academy. No, you don't make an AIDA card for a prisoner. Everybody knows that. How can they possibly test that and it be a viable question? Let me tell you exactly how. If I said to you, you got to handle an EDP, you know what I'm talking about, right? Those 3 letters stand for what? Emotionally, 11 letters. Disturbed, like 12 letters. Prisoner, about 7 or 8 letters, right? I just said it to you. You didn't even catch it. Emotionally disturbed prisoner, and you made him an AIDA card. Because you get halfway through the word emotionally. You see the next 2 words in the corner of your eye begin with D and P. I know what I got. It's an EDP. And you made a freaking AIDA card for prisoner. That's exactly how smart guys don't get on a list. If you read your test, you'll fail it. That's what I say. There's a difference between reading and looking at a question on an NYPD promotional exam. Looking at it is very different. Does it say fax and mail? Or does it say fax or mail? So what I do, go through the whole book. Every place it says fax and or fax or, pull them all out, make your key box. Here's your key box. It doesn't say fax anymore. It says email now. Email or mail. Email and mail. I got the whole list. Here it is. So the emotionally disturbed prisoner is a perfect example, Eric, of how people possessed of the knowledge necessary still get the questions wrong. It's the application of that knowledge in a very specific venue. Swinging a baseball bat when you're a soccer star is not easy. You need to be trained. Yeah, training and experience, which is what we have and we offer to you.
John, we've had some crazy tests in the past, right? Like every year, the way they make the test writing. Is there a trend, though, that you've seen over time with the test? Is there specific procedures that they always going to, is it like, what would you say, or you don't really know? We don't really know where they're going, but we could assume, 60% or 70% of the test is going to be based around, like what are your thoughts overall, like with the exam? Obviously, you're not reading the room. You don't know what's going to be on that test. Right.
So there's a job description that DCAS has. It's part of the notice of exam. They're available online. You can go get them. I got them for you too if anybody wants to see it. The job description, but it's all encompassing. And the exam has to be based on the job description. But again, the job description is a very big, long paragraph, and it's all encompassing, so they can ask whatever they like. All their places that they tend to go consistently, not more, but consistently, exam after exam, yes, there are. But let's say EDPs. They're going to ask you EDP questions. Firearms discharge, probably going to ask a question on that. CCRB, corruption, they're going to ask a question on that. There's so many different things within each of those procedures that they could ask. The tactics I mentioned earlier, EDP prisoner, fax or mail, it's develop a standard way of studying this material and be prepared to apply it to whatever they put in front of you. It doesn't matter if you get 10 questions on EDPs. You know what? I say this, and my partners don't always like it when I say this, but you could blindly go into the exam without really studying very hard and get 40, 50 questions right on your own. Now, you could study on your own, not come to class, and maybe get another 10. You might get a 50 or a 60 without even trying. It's the last 40 questions that I'm going to help you with. You're going to get 50 on your own. You're not getting on a list with that, okay? So what you're asking, John, is, aren't they going to ask about this basic, that? Yeah. And you'll breeze right through it, whether you studied or not. It's the next 50 that are going to dictate if you get on a list or not. For that, you need to come and listen to George, me, Ralph, and everybody in his team. Yeah, that's how that works. So I do. Listen, I have the history all laid out from 1980. I have a copy of the 1988 sergeant's test that I took. I have it down in my library in the basement. No shit. They used to really. Here's the story with DCAS. We talk about being consistent and where do they go, where will they not go. Here's how this is what happened. My dad, when he took his foreman's test for sanitation, the day he took the test, you come home and you sit down in front of like WOR radio and they read off the answers. The answers were published that day. When I took the test in 1988, you could go a month later to the New York City Municipal Reference Library. Now, a reference library means you can go in and refer to things. You can't take them out, right? So the New York City Municipal Reference Library had the promotion exams on file. You could go down there, sit down, read over your test. And if you wanted to pay 5 cents a page at the photocopy machine, go ahead, make a copy of the test, no problem. They had exams on file up until the 1996 lieutenant's exam. It was a very tricky test. They had an outside vendor to put it together, and lawsuits erupted, and they did not publish that test. And from that day forward to this, they have not published these exams anymore. I wrote an article on the Chief. The Chief, the Civil Service newspaper. I've written a few articles there. I wrote one bemoaning this fact. What's the secret? Why aren't you publishing these exams? You're making mistakes. You don't want us to be able to scrutinize them, blah, blah, blah. Someone from DCAS answered me with an article of their own. And instead of engaging in back and forth, I tried to get him on the phone, got the guy on the phone. And he goes, look, this is what he explained to me. Because there's lawsuits over certain questions that we thought were viable, but we lost in court, they have created a bank of questions that were not challenged, that were successful. and they want to reuse them, tweak it, change it. That EDP question, I didn't make that up. That's not coming out of John's imagination. 3 times that's been asked on a sergeant exam. 93, I think again in 99. 3 times they've asked that question. So they've got their all-time favorites that will continue to appear. But let's say you know what those 10 are. That's only 10 points. That's only 10 points. You're trying to get on a list for promotion here. What happened also was this, shortly after 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I could go on all day about 9/11. I was down there, blah, blah, blah. When 9/11 happened, there was a sergeant's test scheduled for October. October of 01 was supposed to be sergeant's test. Obviously got canceled. But all they did was they moved it to the spring of 02. Now, do you know the overtime people were engaging in after 9/11? And if you remember, in the spring of 02, we had UNGA. The UN General Assembly came to town right at the time they're giving this sergeant's test. The amount of overtime people were forced to do from 9/11 and the trauma of 9/11. Now you're doing overtime for UNGA, and they gave a test. Now, the way it used to work was this. It was an open competitive exam. The department said we need a 1,500 name list. DCAS would say, okay, the score of the 1,500th scorer will be the passing grade. They did not establish a passing grade. The passing grade would be established by the results. So whatever number 1,500, that was going to be the passing grade. First time, I think, ever, the passing grade was under 70. The 1,500th guy had a mark of like 60-something. Ray Kelly was commissioner. Ray Kelly is an intellect. He's a Harvard graduate also, right? And he said, that's not okay. We're going to change that. This is why you guys took tests. You might remember this. They gave us sergeants like every other year. 02, 03, 05, 06. They just kept giving them. Guys weren't ready for them. Gals weren't ready for them. The overtime, 9/11, all this stuff. And Kelly said, passing grade is 70. However many people score above 70 will be the size of the list. And that changed everything. And it was a big adjustment. And people had to change the way, that they applied themselves. And you had to attain at least a 70. And that started in, I think, 03. Since then, now, they've just been, how do you lower that bar? There is an outside entity that's been hired to, I won't say massage, but to look at the results of an exam and ensure certain aspects of that list are intact. I don't know exactly what they are, but you can look at a question and run the data. We're going to change one choice on this question. How many more names will garner on the list? Right? This is the analysis done. And right now we have a sergeant's list of over 4,000 names, which that's the first in my history. I've been at this, my first 1988. I've never seen a list that big. The largest I ever saw was about 2,000, maybe 500. And 1,000 people died on that list. They got up as far as 1,500. You know the way this works, right? A civil service list comes out. By law, it can last only 1 year. The department, whatever agency it is, can ask for an extension 3 times. So the maximum legal length of a promotion list is 4 years. That's it. It cannot go beyond 4. What happened was COVID hit. They're near the end of the list, and they applied for and were granted an exception. Slippery slope? I hope not. I'm guessing it's not. It's not because they are having a test, I got. So there's 4,000 people on this list, and half of them think they're going to get made. They're not. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. You're not getting made. You got to look at the numbers. They're doing about 55 a month. How many months you got left till that list dies legally? May of 27, I think it dies. That's how many more they're going to make, and that's going to be the end of that list. Because they had all those short lists year after year after year, people don't have the experience of seeing people die on the list. That used to be a standard thing. If they didn't get to you and the 4 years are up, you died on the list. It was a thing. It's not a thing anymore, but it's going to be now. And I hate to be the bearer, but my partner's telling me, John, don't talk about that. Well, sorry, I just did.
I got to follow you into that last test. I'm waiting for it to come back because I want to see how they curved and why they decided how they curved.
Well,
So I'm waiting for decals. I'm just curious because I'm curious because it could affect every municipal test, every civil service test, not just the NYPD. So like I want to see why that decision was made, who made a decision, and what was that about, And so that's how you had a 4,000 person list. You would have never had the list that size if not for that.
Right. And technology is good, but just because it exists, they shouldn't feel like they have to use it. Certain things are done well and without controversy that did not use existing technology. Don't feel compelled to use technology just because it's there. These written exams were given in New York City public high schools. They stopped that because of COVID. They don't want us coming in, possibly affecting the environment, whatever. The last test they gave at the Javits Center in four different sessions. A lot of security about don't talk to each other. I mean, it was a mess. And I thought I understand the other guy was cheating. The guy that runs the other school was somehow helping people. It was a mess. Go ahead.
I got a question. I don't want to interrupt you, but I got a question for you because this is what is often discussed. And a lot of cops we speak to on a daily basis, like, the sergeant's test doesn't really measure much, doesn't measure leadership, doesn't measure intelligence. What do you say to those people? Like, what does these exams measure? Like, because obviously it's not leadership training, right? It's an exam, which I think is great. It cuts out nepotism, cronyism. But what do these exams measure? How do they prepare someone to be an actual sergeant, if they do?
Okay. You're at the scene of a job. It's a fustercluck. No one knows what the hell to do. Call a sergeant. The guy shows up, and he's got no clue. And he just goes, hey, you know what? This is bullshit. Or a guy shows up and goes, okay, look, this is what happens. The way the book says it, we better call this guy, take care of this, get crime scene over onto that. You want someone that knows what they're talking about, right? Here's what the department, that's for us. We want that, right? I want a boss showing up that's got a little bit of balls and a lot of bit of knowledge and plenty of experience. What the job wants, Eric, it's a very good question. I want a guy that gives a shit. They come out with an interim order regarding your social media account or regarding your freaking shirt and tie. Blah, blah, blah. Do you even care? Did you look? Are you interested to know where this department is going? What is it telling its membership? Do you have your head out of your ass? And are you looking at what this department is engaging in how it deals with you and your fellows? Do you even care? Are you even looking? If you're studying for your sergeant's test, you care. You know what I mean? If you're just going to loll around and go, yeah, I'd make a good boss because I'm a good street cop and I give a crap, but you have no clue what the job is engaging in. What is the political environment? What are your cops actually up against? Are they going to get charges for that you think it's a good idea? You need to know, and do you care enough to avail yourself of that information? That's the guy I want in rank. That's how this department looks at it. That's exactly how they look at it.
100%. John, tell us about your books. I know you wrote 2 books, right?
Can you see it over my shoulder right there? It's all the way in the back.
I can't see it.
I know. I'm half blind myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I can't see words right in front of me anymore. I'm supposed to be wearing glasses, and I just fight it. I never
me
wear
too,
them.
and I don't want to put them on because I don't like the way I look at them, so I'm not wearing my glasses. So I wrote 2. Funny thing, I retired right in 03. Yeah, August of 03 was my last day at work. And I decided that now I was a Harvard graduate at this point, and I was working as an expert witness. That's a long story how that came to be. It was a fantastic thing. I testified before Congress and everything, and I decided I wanted to read up on the classics. I read Crime and Punishment. I read War and Peace. I read the Bible cover to cover, treated it like a novel. It took almost a year to treat that like a novel. And then I decided I love reading. I love fiction works. I was a big Tom Clancy fan back in the day, and John Grisham and all these other authors. And I really enjoyed reading those in my downtime and on vacation and whatnot. I decided to try my hand at it. And I wrote 1 book, and I went to a number of writers' conferences, and I met with a bunch of people. And finally, I got an agent. Her name was Loretta Barrett. She was Betsy White's agent. She was a very successful agent. So she takes the book She goes, oh, we're going to make this into something. She gets it into the hands of a senior editor at Simon Schuster, one of the biggest. You know, from what I understand now, John, here's what I understand. There's only 5 major publishing houses in the world. Any publishing label you've heard of, Penguin Books, Pocket Books, Atria, they all belong to one of those 5. Simon Schuster is one of them. She gets my book into the hands of a senior editor who loved it. He said, we're going to buy this book. We're going to make something out of this. Now, the way it works is the senior editors sit around once a month and pitch the books they want to the executives who have not read the book. It lost at that stage. The business people, the executives who never read the book said, no, he's an unknown. We're not taking it. So my agent comes back to me. She goes, all right, we can't pitch the same book twice. Start on the second one. So I start on the second book, and I call it the Jimmy Gallagher series. It's Captain Jimmy Gallagher. Rogue Captain Jimmy Gallagher. That's the main character. They're a lot of fun. So I get started on the second book. I get halfway through it, The Guns of Antwerp. She gets a brain tumor, and she passed. And I have not been able to find an agent since. So shortly after she passed, the second book was complete, and I looked into self-publishing. It was a lot of work. You have to fit their parameters of font size and all this crap. But I did it, and I put them out there, and they're out there. And, you know, guys, and you both, this is true of both of you. I know it. There are people in your circle of family and friends that if they thought something was bullshit, they'd tell you. Right? No one has told me that about my books. And I'm talking about some hard guys and some lovely people and some, you know, they love the books. They say they're great. And I know that they are. Look, Loretta Barrett thought it was great, my agent. The senior editor, Simon Schuster, thought it was great. They're really good books. So I self-publish them. They're out there. And John and I were talking beforehand. You know, I made a number of appearances on, you know, CNN, NBC, Newsmax, News Nation, trying to sell books. And, you know, it hardly moves the needle. It hardly moves the needle. But, yeah, they're out there. Anybody listening right now, if you have time and you want to enjoy their fast, fun reads, they're really a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for asking, man.
John, you know, I'm really glad. And that's the best, honestly, it's the best description I ever heard of why these tests are important, because I feel they don't measure leadership. I always said it shows you're motivated and you can be dedicated, commitment. But I think that was the best description I heard. It really shows you care. And because, I mean, right. What do you think about this? Right? A lot of times it seems that the street cops have a leg behind. Like, what do you say to, you know, in comparison to someone that's in internal affairs or maybe an administrative position where they have a lot of time to study, they have a lot of time dedicated to it, where a street cop is knocking around, maybe doesn't have the same time. How does that street cop compete with that administrative cop that has all that time studying? How does he take that approach to the test and compete with that?
Yeah. Run your own race. You got to ignore those people. I mentioned a few names to you earlier. Tommy Galati and Danny Nicholson and Kevin Campbell, these street crime guys, Mike Shea, all these other guys. We would be out there running around on jobs. And then, you know how the dust settles, you get back in your car, you got a minute. Hey, did you read the new 20701? And we start quizzing each other. Like, just get your head in the game. There will be others on the street with you who have their head in the game. Focus on with them. Talk to them. Ignore the inside guys. Just, you have to ignore that. And it's aggravating because, you know, listen, you bring me to another topic. This is for the captain's course mostly. I haven't really seen this very prevalent in the lieutenant and sergeant test, but they set a thing called a tripwire on a captain's exam. It's usually question 1 through 5, and it is so ridiculously difficult. It is actually meant to be unanswerable. So that when you get to it, like you're all geared up, you studied really hard, you're knowledgeable, obviously you passed 2 tests, now you're sitting down for your captain's exam, and you get to this question, holy shit. It is a tripwire meant to blow your mind, put you into a bad mental state, and you know what? Guys, you've seen this. After the test, everyone's walking around with their answer key. Well, how many did you get? Oh, I got 17 wrong. Oh, I only got 9 wrong. I got 21 wrong. You notice groupings of wrong answers. No one gets 1 wrong there, 1 wrong there. It's, oh, I got 2 in a row here. I got 3 in a row there. This is how that happens. They set the tripwire, and then the next 3 or 4 or 5 questions is where and becomes or. They sneak in the emotionally disturbed prisoner, And because your mind is blown, you're ready to snap your freaking pencil, they nail you on the next 3 questions. So, Eric, in answer to your question is this. If you look at the inside kid who you know is studying 8 hours a day in company time while you're out here mopping up 911 calls, you're never going to have the right mindset to relax and study and train yourself. You have to have the right attitude. And those shitheads are going to give you a bad attitude. You don't have to say God bless them, but you just have to ignore them. Ignore them, team up with the other street guys who are studying, and just run your own race. That's what it comes down to. Run your own race.
Great advice, dude. Great, absolutely great advice. Don't worry about nobody else.
Thanks.
Put the work in yourself. Don't worry about it. That is great advice. Anything we missed here today? Anything you want to cover? Any stories?
I'm sure there are. Yeah. There's a lot we missed, but not that I want to cover it.
We'll get you on the record. Come on, don't worry about it. You know.
Well, I told you about Ralph and those Snoo guys, and there's a couple other things too. You know, whatever, man. Yeah, no, it was all good. I enjoyed my time on the job. You know, my motivation in coming on, like I said, I was a kid in the Bronx, and I just admired the way the cops did their jobs, and I wanted to be one of them. I tell you what, quick story. I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. We were living down in the Grand Concourse, 177th Street, and we were going somewhere. And I have a brother, he's a year older than me. And my mother had each of us by the hand. We're like 6 or 7 years old. We're going to get on a D train, and 3 or 4 young wild guys come up, and they're going to rob us. And oh my God, the fear, I could feel it. I didn't realize how scared I should have been, but the fear, I could feel it in my mother's hand. It was like, oh my God. A big man in a blue suit turned the corner. And those kids, right? And I'll never forget the sight of that man and the feeling that I got to my mother's hand. Everything was okay now because he's here. I was a little boy, but let me finish this fucking story. You know the way the trains are set up, right? Picture the Grand Concourse, like 10 freaking lanes, right? They dip down the stairs, disappeared, right? Cop is there, whatever he's saying. I'm a little kid. They pop up on the other side of the concourse. And the cop is talking to my mother. Now, they didn't actually put hands on us. They didn't do anything. They just were coming at us, right? They appear over there. He starts explaining to my mother, well, they didn't really do anything. They start, hey, motherfucker. They start taunting the cop and us. And that freaking cop stood there, and he didn't do anything. I don't know what he should have done. I don't know. But to this little 6-year-old, he should have charged it across the concourse and kicked their ass is what he should have done. I never forgot the feeling. You know what I mean? Of how scared my mother was or how relieved she was when he showed up. But I never forgot that fucking shrug either. You know what I mean? Go get him. I don't give a fuck that you got nothing on him. Go get him anyway, discount them or whatever. You make them run for their lives at least,
John, you've seen a lot.
What?
John, you've seen a lot, like over the course of your life, and not only just being in the department, but being a New Yorker. There's this thing out there that crime just miraculously dropped. It was just this miraculous crime trend. Policing had nothing to do with it. The way we changed policing had nothing to do with it. Broken windows had nothing to do with it. What are your thoughts? Why do you think New York City transformed from the late 80s, early 90s into becoming the safest big city in America in the early 2000s? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I testified in Congress in 2004 and answered that question in front of the House Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security. And in the 90s, it wasn't just CompStat. Yes, that was a major part of it. It wasn't just broken windows. Yes, that was a major part of it. Those were great policies and ideas. But what made those actually work was the motivation of your workforce. I mentioned names of men before who went from basic street level, low level executives to running the department. They were street cops. They knew how it worked out there. They cared about us, and they led us into the CompStat era. It doesn't cost you a dime to have high morale. It doesn't cost you a dime to take good care of your people and to back up your street cops. They, like everything in Washington is about funding, right? And the question that I was there to answer, I was on a panel. Matter of fact, Kamala Harris was on my panel with me. She was the San Francisco DA at the time. How do you bring down crime in the face of budget cuts? That was the question. And I brought a couple of things like when you get a cabaret license in New York City, we'll grant you a license as long as you put up cameras and grant us access to the cameras. There's ways of getting things without having to pay for them. But in the end, I said it's the motivation of your workforce by supporting their actions and providing them with proper tools. And that's what happened in the 90s. How does it continue into today? Here's what I like to say about the profession of policing. In our lifetime, gentlemen, it has evolved from a blue-collar job to a white-collar profession. Educational mandates came into place in 1988 for promotion. Then they came in for hiring. Listen, when I graduated high school in 1979, there was only one college you could go to get a criminal justice or police science degree. It was John Jay. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to show me an institution of higher learning, a university or college, that doesn't at least offer classes in that field, if not degrees. All right? The School of Criminal Justice at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, where I graduated, their criminal justice program is only about 30 years old. The entire profession has evolved and become a white-collar profession. There are people, I mentioned Jack Dunny a few times. This guy was an Eagle Scout, okay? He went away to college and then opted to join the NYPD. That's not where I came from. We were just slugging it out in the street, looking for a good job. Hey, you know what? I think I could be a good cop. No. Today, it's a career choice. You go down to 1PP on Education Day. The education, top universities in the country are down there trying to entice our membership to come and get a degree from them. So, yeah, the entire, how do you keep crime down today? We've got some really smart people who are totally dedicated. You know what, guys? Listen, we're cops. And there's a part of us that has disdain for, I don't want to be too strict about this, but for people who are not. but who are not and profess to have knowledge about how we should do our jobs. That pisses us off to no end, right? But now we have people who did the basics and are dedicated professionals, highly educated, highly intelligent, and they know what they're talking about, and it's okay. That's who Jessica Tisch is. I don't think she's doing a bad job. I don't know personally. Joe Kenny is a chief detective. There's got to, listen, for all the shitheads that are out there, high up in these bureaucracies, there are good people too. And they know what they're doing, and they're doing a good job. And there's some people, a lot of them I don't know anymore. We bounced names around before. Like I said, if you're not following McCormick on this podcast, he's going to go to town on some people that were in it. Here's something. I had this conversation with Paul the other day. We were young. He was younger than me even. We get up to the executive rank. And I was surprised and disappointed. I thought the people up here were somehow more mature, less, making fun of people, oh my God, it's the opposite. Some of the most petty, childish, vindictive people I've ever met are extremely high-ranking and very successful people in the bureaucracy. Shocking. I mean, I was shocked and disappointed. But again, for every one of them, there's 10 good guys or 10 good gals that make it. I mean, look, we got some really good people at the top of this job. Malarasso, did you know her dad? He was a super guy. He ran street crime. She's a great gal. You got some good people at the top of the job today. You really do. And they know what they're doing. And they're devoted to this task. And I think that's why we're keeping crime down. When you leave New York City, and you like I went down when Kevin Clark was the police commissioner of Baltimore, he brought me down there for a couple of weeks just to help write his plan of action. And then you start, as an expert witness now, I'm delving into the policy procedures of other departments. As cynical as I am to our job, the NYPD is the finest organization of its kind in the world. I have had a love-hate relationship with the job before I even got hired, as I told you. But I have to give it its due. It is better run than most any other department out there. We truly are the gold standard in our policies and our procedures and in our results. And in the end, as we've been talking about this whole time, it's about the people. We still, for some reason, we get the best people on our job. Yeah. Thanks for asking that.
No, it's important. You know, we often talk about what you just alluded to, right? Is that it's important to have strategies, but leadership is the most important thing. And you have to have a good apparatus with leadership. And morale is really important. It's unfortunate. I think the morale right now is at the lowest we've ever seen, which is why we have a mass exodus and an attrition rate going on with the NYPD. But you know, I just want to say personally, I want to thank you and thank the key. I always mention, I obviously took the lieutenant and captain's test, but I always mention the sergeant's test because for me, I think that was the most quintessential exam. The lieutenant's test and captain's test is important, but the sergeant's test is your first crack at it, you know, is a first experience. And, you know, it's the unknown. The lieutenant's test and captain's test, I feel you're far more prepared for it. And I did really well. I said only 200 some odd people passed that year with 69 list. I think the key really prepared me. I want to thank you for that. I think it was awesome. And I actually enjoy going to those classes. So I wanted to ask you this. So a lot of guys, there's a question often talked about, and I'm curious what you think about this. So a lot of guys say, I'm just going to study the key material and not even look at the patrol guide, which I think is an honor that people say that. What do you say to those guys? I'm just gonna look at the key material. I don't even have to read the patrol guide because you said you really don't read the test. You have to look at it. What do you say to those guys? Is that the right approach?
That is a viable approach if you want to do that. Yes, absolutely 100%. There's many people in rank who aced these tests who did nothing but study the key material, never even looked at a patrol guide. Two things. At the beginning, I said the key method is read the procedure once, don't read it twice, but do read it once. I suggest that. Could you pass the test just looking at all material? 100% yes, you can. Yes. I forget what the other thing I was going to say now. Yes, you could. You absolutely could. Yeah. I don't suggest it. I think you should read the procedure at least one time, but you could pass just based on our material.
I think the breakdown that you guys did, and if that's something that you came up with, I think is so awesome. Paul, just the breakdown of acronyms and the arrows and just the diagrams, it was very visual, and that's what would make me remember and pop off the page. And you know, and plus, I honestly think the best is your staff. Like they're just the charismatic, and you want to be there because it's dry material, right? But you got guys like George and Ralph and yourself and Paul, and they get you into it. Like, okay, I actually look forward to next week coming to class.
Yeah, coming to class can be fun. Actually, it can actually be fun. And all those boxes and arrows and boxes. Back when I was the CO, the ICO in the 3-3, and I'm trying to explain juveniles to these guys before the key was even thought of. And I would get out a piece of paper. So look, I'd write a line down. I'm put this kid here, put this kid here. That's where it came from. The key materials right now, those lesson plans, are my notes formalized and published. Really, that's what they are. That's what they are. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have evolved, of course, since then, but yeah, that's what it was all born from. Yeah.
No, but 100%. Sergeant's test, the first one. That's why I say read the book too. Like read the book, read the guide, like put it all in there. Like get a good basis of it. And I think as much as it maybe it doesn't dictate who's a leader or who not, it'll definitely help you. You know, you're definitely gonna run into scenarios. What do we do here? Oh, the book says whatever. Even if you don't do all of it actually on the street, you'll know half of it. Like you'll know how to get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? Yeah. You'll know how to get the ball rolling just based upon that, you know. So
spot on, brother. Spot on.
You know, but 100% the sergeant. I think the sergeant that's what it is, right? Most people never become a sergeant, right? Most people that enter the ranks of the NYPD don't go that route, and that's your first step into leadership. And it's the only way you're going to get yourself a guaranteed raise. It's the only way you're going to put you move up the ladder without having to any political connections or have to worry about anything else, you know, any of that other nonsense. You know, for me, it was I would have never been anybody on the job without the promotional exams. And I got there using the key. Like I followed what they told me. I read the book. I put my all into it. I gave it 2 hours a day. I did it for 6 months. I waited till the class started. I think George even said, like, don't study until the class starts. You know, wait till this class starts. When it goes, you go. You go that 6 months, and then you study until that test day. You put it all out there, and then you pass it. And I followed that advice, and it worked out for me. You know, it worked out for you, Eric. It worked out for a lot of us. You know.
I think what worked for me is honestly, like I said, the key made it enjoyable, and it actually made me want to go to the classes because the material itself is dry, but you make, you know, I felt like I look forward going to class and here, George, talking to you and it's just so charismatic. Like you actually had fun, and then you see other people, and you kind of like the curiosity helped me out too. Like who else is studying? I want to see, you have that competitive nature, and so I just want to ask you because I think it's important also, right? A lot has changed. You talk about 30 years of having the key. How has technology helped, or you think been a drawback from the key? And obviously, you have apps, and it's a different. Right before, I remember when I started, you had you listen to the audios, but now you have the apps, and it's a different approach. So, do you think the technology has helped? Has it made it more difficult for you? How does that work with the key?
A little bit of both. The basics don't change. The content is going to be transmitted to the student. What's the vehicle? Depending on today's, like you said, we used to tape our class and hand out a cassette tape, believe it or not. Then it went from a cassette tape to a CD to a link on a website you could download it. And now, of course, it's completely different. And there was a transition there. Everything was done on paper. We hand out the lesson plans. Now we still hand out the lesson plans, but we have them posted online. And then it became a security issue. We can't post it online in such a way that someone who didn't pay for it can go and pirate it and take it down. And so the technology has been good and bad, as far as how we run the business. Again, the basics don't change. We have content that we need to transmit to the student. Technology has made that a little bit easier, but it's brought its own concerns. The testing itself, I don't like what the technology we spoke earlier about, going from a pen and paper test in a public school in New York City in one day. Everyone in the city sat down, took the exam at the exact same time, to, well, let's use the existing technology and take it on a computer in 4 different sessions. And I think that was a misapplication of technology, to tell you the truth. So it's a double-edged sword. It's been good and bad. I love my poster. It looks good. Like that picture of the guys there? That's some picture, isn't it? Let me see.
That's a great
picture. Great photo, man. Great photo. I got a photo that I like though. Look at this photo. John sent me this. Look at this.
That's old, man.
That's a good really photo. Do you know where this was, John?
Decatur Avenue, 194th Street.
Wow.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Wow, that's a great picture. Hey, you know what? We're talking about the books, right? So I started an author's website. That picture is up there with a whole bunch of others too, and links to the books. It's johnmonaghan.com if anybody wants to see more of that type of stuff. Yeah.
How old were you here, John?
22.
Yeah.
No, 20. I came on at 22, so it's probably 25, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's a great question, by the way. It comes from Tom Joyce. If you know Tom Joyce, he runs a show for a 10th Floor Tavern, retired lieutenant. Great question. He says, does talking about technology, does the key use AI at all?
No. Not yet, anyway. I mean, we'll see where it fits. I went to that Chat GPT one time, and I said, all right, here's an inch of water. Give me a lesson plan. This is a very, very unique, specific niche that we're in. I don't know of any other document out there that's structured the way our patrol guide is. And then someone said, you can train Chat GPT, keep attending. Look, it's what you call a learning curve. I'm not about to climb that mountain at this stage of the game. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. Yes, it's very time consuming, but it's my work. And ChatGPT, look, it goes back to what Ralph's April Fool's Day video was about. If you have not had your head in this game for 20 years and battled it out and rose up to the top, you're not qualified to teach. ChatGPT and AI are not qualified to help me assemble my lesson plans. They're just not. You need so much more than the human touch. You need the touch of an NYPD member who has battled it through and been successful. That's the only way you can develop.
It's not even accurate, dude. Like, honestly, like AI is so overhyped. It's not even funny. Yesterday, I tested it because I was I put a post out, and it was just about in 1848, I believe. The president at the time, 23rd president, Benjamin Harris, he had put out that he was going to put federal marshals. He was going to have U.S. marshals go to New York City elections because they were worried about how corrupt the elections were in New York City at the time. They were worried about it affecting the presidential race. So I knew that as a fact. And I just out of curiosity, I was like, what president? I said, which presidents threatened to send federal forces to New York City to secure the elections? And it came out Donald Trump. And while that's accurate because he said ICE, it's accurate because he said that he would put ICE. It totally left out Benjamin Harris. And then I said, what about Benjamin Harris? And then it gave me the whole rundown on Benjamin Harris. So it's not a good, it could help you with some things, but it's not there.
I have not turned toward it at all.
It's
not even
it's very subjective.
Yeah.
Tell you the truth, I think it's going to cause mental psychosis for some people, because for some people, I mean, AI, whatever form they use, if it's ChatGPT, it's become like their source of everything. It's almost like their friend. I see, you can see people walking down the street just talking to AI just to get information. So it is scary at some point. It's a good tool. It should be used as a tool, but not as to run your life.
It's a tool. Yeah, we haven't applied it yet ourselves. Maybe that's down the road for us. We'll see. But no, right now we're just focused on getting better at the things that we do, not taking on something new.
Brother,
yeah, well, Tom Joyce is in the technology business where where they're going into law enforcement, streamlining a lot of the things they're doing. And Tom, I'm not saying that there's no use for it. I'm just saying it's not the end all be all. It's not the wizard behind the cloth. Like you're not going to just get the answers like this. Like if you know what you're doing and you use it to do something and then you review what it gives you, yeah, it could be beneficial. It could be time saving, depending what it is. Some things it's horrible.
I would love to see, and I'm sure some version of this exists now. We're out in the street, and I'm going to, let's say you're going to cut a guy loose on a summons or whatever it is, Here, put your finger in here. And I'm going to get his fingerprint, and I'm going to know exactly who this guy is. I'm not going to rely on him bullshitting me, give me fake ID, blah, 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 warrant check, this, that. Imagine, here, put your finger in this device, and bam, here it is. I know exactly who he is. Is he wanted for anything? What's his history? All that right there in the field. I would love to see that. And I'm sure it's easily attainable with today's technology, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of other things we could do too. Here's something, people out there who never put someone in handcuffs, they do not understand. A lot of the cases I get as an expert in court involve the use of force, and not always shootings. Sometimes it's grappling, right? They have no idea. 120-pound madman who says, F you, you're not taking me. He puts his hands up like this. You know how hard it is to get his two hands behind his back and cleanly place the handcuffs on? People have no clue how difficult that is. And then you end up in fisticuffs and you're pounding a guy. He's going to get hurt and blah, blah, blah. Turns into this whole thing. Tasers don't work nearly as much as they say they do. Half the times they fail. There's got to be a way. Maybe some genius out there is going to figure this out. I'm going to put one cuff on. John, you get his left hand. I'll get his right hand. Forget about bringing them together. I'll put this cuff on. You put that cuff on. And now they're connected with a cable that's got a winch and bring the two hands together. Why is that not something viable? Like I can get a cuff on. You can get a cuff on. How many times have you been there? I got his right hand there. You got his left. And we're still rolling around for 2 or 3 more minutes. Blood is spilled before we get the two hands together, right? There's got to be an easier way.
Well, John, I say it often. I've taken part in almost every martial art. I've competed myself, and and I can tell you, just to control another human being is so difficult. It's the hard. I don't care how much training you have. John and I talk about it all the time. I don't care how much training you have, especially as a cop. It's so hard to control another human being, especially you're not trying to hurt them. You're just trying to get them under control. Yeah. So it makes it extremely challenging. And like you said, 120-pound person.
Eric, you could probably knock a guy out like that, but that's not your goal here. You're not supposed to knock him out. You're supposed to put him in handcuffs. Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah,
it's extremely hard. I mean, John and I talk about it all the time. Like, you could be a UFC fighter, but being a cop and trying to get someone handcuffs, it's a different game.
Yeah,
it really is.
The problem is the politics overriding law enforcement. Like think about this. Right now in New York State, you have assembly members presenting a bill that they want to make it legal for individuals to carry pepper spray, right? Which is make it more accessible in New York State, which it should be. Women going jogging. You know, for years, women would ask me, can I carry pepper spray? I'm like, don't worry about it. If you need to pepper spray somebody, don't worry about what the law says. But so, you're actually getting a little common sense in that legislation coming. And at the same time that's coming out of the assembly, you have city council member Chiose, who wants to remove the NYPD's ability to use pepper spray at a protest. I mean, it's like you don't like this, like the world is just lost. And I get, like, I don't want to get into a whole debate about it, but that I think that's the problem with the academic mind and the academic brain that doesn't have that street experience overseeing police departments, because I like, oh yeah, you know what? No problem. We'll just take away pepper spray from the cops. And it's like, do you know what that's going to do? Like, it literally restricts our ability for mass control when John, situations get out of hand.
When the New York City Council passed the compression law,
yep,
15 unions and surrounding municipalities got together, hired a top New York law firm to sue them, to overturn that. They hired me as their expert. I wrote an affidavit. We got the law overturned initially, and Judge Lawrence Love was his name, overturned it. He cited my affidavit 3 times in his decision. When you have, we're the only profession that suffers through this. You have an idea. We used to use the phrase, well, that's just academic. In other words, it's a great idea, and it exists solely in your minds in your classroom. And there are ways for you to approach an industry and suggest the implementation of your idea. That's fine. But to Bigfoot in on top of an organization, having no experience in how to run that organization, is egregious. I'll give you an example of how it should be done right. You guys worked, a photo array. Now, it's in a CPL, will be done in a, quote, double-blind fashion. And what that means is this. I'm the detective sitting down with the person and go, you recognize anybody in this 6-pack? I have no clue myself who the bad guy is. That's called double blind. It's Eric's case. He made up the 6-pack. He knows who the bad guy is. He hands it over to you, John. You don't know who the bad guy is, and you present it to the witness. That's called double blind. It's meant to take out whatever subconscious bias Eric has towards his bad guy, right? Academia came up with this idea, and they went through the proper channels. They had a series of meetings with prosecutors, police chiefs, police unions, defense attorneys, judges. It took 5 years. How do we improve eyewitness identification, false convictions? And they set about, instead of pointing at us and going, you guys are doing this wrong, do it this way. They had a series of meetings with professionals in the industry, and they all came up to a conclusion, and they eventually changed the CPL in a way that was acceptable to everyone. That happened 10 years ago. Today, the city freaking council goes, we don't want you doing that anymore. And they write a procedure, and our ballless department accepts it from them and puts it in a patrol guide. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's really upsetting that they think that they have the standing to input Bigfoot down on top of us, procedures based not on experience, based on ideology. And that's where we are, John. That's exactly what's happening. Yeah, it's terrible. And again, the last thing I want to say about that is kudos to every cop who puts the uniform on today and goes out there in that environment. God bless you guys and gals, man. And I mean that sincerely. We thought we were up against this shit, and we were, but oh my God, not like you guys are. Let me say this. I said this on Newsmax one day. They're talking just about this, and a couple of guys got killed. They disbanded anti-crime. I couldn't freaking believe it. And in the months following, the cops out there broke the old-time record for gun collars in a month. Did you know that? No, these kids are good. They're good. They're out there busting their hump in ways we don't even understand. And in ways that we can't hear it because they're not allowed to get on social media like we're doing right now and tell the truth. They're not allowed to. Like you said about the guy from the rant, Polstead, he got screwed. They know the truth. And I want them to know that we do know the truth. They're out there busting their hump and doing a heck of a good job in the face of a lot of bullshit. Yeah.
I really appreciate being so supportive of the cops. I mean, they need it more now than ever. And
Yeah.
you know, it's and listen, you're still, you know, you still have a great connection to the boots on the ground. You see these cops often. You see them studying the sergeant. You see them studying the lieutenant, captain. So I mean, you've been around a long time. You are as part of the NYPD as ever. I want to listen. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on here. Thank you for your staff. Thank you for your contribution. I just want to ask you also. We always ask, right? Look, almost 30 years with the Key. You retired from the NYPD. Testify to Congress. What else are some passions besides law enforcement? What do you do with your time? Is there any passions you have? Any hobbies? Are you into golf? Like, just curious to get to know John Monaghan besides law enforcement.
My kids. You know, I said at the beginning, the title Chief and Dad. I believe that they were mutually exclusive. I had to pick one. I chose Dad. My wife, like I said, gonna be married 40 years. My daughter, she just got married. She lives just a couple blocks away. She's having a baby in June. My son lives just on the other side of town. My little daughter's down Manhattan. Family events. You know, I have a very large, like I said, my mother came from Ireland. She was one of 11. I got cousins all over the world. Family events, and, you know, I go to Mass on Sunday, you know. I like to read. I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus, you know. Yeah, taking care of the house, being with the family, reading fiction. I love reading fiction. And, you know, like as an example, my daughter and her husband were getting the bathroom replaced. She's a school teacher. He's a cop here in our town, Orangetown, New York. So I'm over there house sitting every single day. No place in the world I'd rather be. Yeah.
He's an Orangetown cop?
Huh?
He's an Orangetown cop?
He's in the academy right now, yeah.
I heard they get paid pretty well. They think their salary's pretty damn good, Orangetown. Yeah.
They are. I tell you what, the kid was a crane operator, and you know those guys, they made his grandfather and his father were all crane operators, right? And he wants to come on the Orangetown job. He simply doesn't want to go into the city anymore. And he wants to be right here where we're all living, you know. And the investigator said, you know, you're the first guy in Local 15 to sit in that chair. Why? Because the salary he was making was ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, there are great advantages to civil service, and especially when you can do it right in this town where you live. Yeah. No, it's all good. So
that's a great job, crane operator, dude. I knew a lot.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot. You have to have 35 certifications before you can get up into that crane. 35. I mean, one false move, and a lot of people are going to die. You know.
Yeah. That's a scary job. I wouldn't be able to set up there. Yeah. I know that. Yeah. That's scary.
Listen, how much in the comments?
I
don't have my glasses on, so like I haven't been able to read them. Are they good? Are they breaking our balls?
No. Everybody loves you, John. They were saying that you look like the dude from Terminator. That you look like a movie star.
Yeah.
They were asking if you ever acted. No, they were good.
Stand up said you look like a wise guy.
Yeah. No, they were good. You could see it when you go back on YouTube if you watch it. You could bring up the comments. You'll see it.
Okay.
You know, that's why we leave them running when you get it on the big screen. You know,
John, you got a lot of love here, man. A lot. I'm telling you, man, because you know John and I are used to getting trolls all day, but you got a lot of love, brother.
Cool. I love it.
Yeah, we had a couple of trolls here, but we don't. You know, we love them just the same. You know, we don't treat them any different. You know,
it's like the house not studying. Just ignore them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so, all right, brother. Listen, you know, we appreciate you going on. Thanks for spending 2 hours with us. And anything you want to end on before we let you go for the day? Go about your business.
Just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on. And God bless all the guys and gals out there right now. You know, and come to class. Buy the key. Last thing, $6.99. I didn't agree to that right away. Paulie had to twist my arm. I said, that's a really big freaking discount.
No, it is, man. I paid more than that over a decade ago. I mean, so I'm like, you know, I was even like, really? I was like, so
anyway,
it is.
I was doing the math, and I said, John, I can't believe how cheap it is. If you use the fines and filter $6.99, first of all, the classes already are less than $38 a class. It's a great discount, and it's not even a cost. It's investment. Look, Bronx, New York, 5244. We don't know who that is. Maybe you know, but he said John was always a good guy, and we can tell right here, John, the contribution that you had. I don't even know how many people you have changed their lives, but you have helped people make sergeant. lieutenant, captain. Some of those people have went up the ranks, had very successful careers. You've helped thousands of people, and I really want to thank you. So anyone who's watching this right now, if you're a cop right now, if you want to get promoted, you got to get with the key. If you don't want to get promoted, you got to get in these classes anyway, because it's important that you know the patrol guide right now, especially in this environment. It's really tough to be a police officer now, and give yourself that opportunity anyway. Give yourself the opportunity. You know what? You deserve better. Move up the ranks, get a better salary, enjoy your family. So, John, please take the last word. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed the interview. Ralph, unfortunately, he did beat you. He was on here for about 4 hours. He's number one right now. So, but we appreciate it. Ralph would have won another 6 hours if we let him.
I'm happy to stand in the background and have my guys shine out in front of me, man. That's all good. All good stuff. Good. All right, fellas. God bless you all and everybody out there, man. Thanks again.
All right. Pleasure, brother. Thank you, dude.
John, thank you.
Yeah. So that was awesome, dude. That was good. He had a lot of good stories. I'd love to have him back on, like go into, when things arise. So that was a good interview. But it was cool to hear about how the key founded. So that was good. Next week we're gonna have Larry Sharp. He's running for governor. I think he's trying to take over Blakeman for the Republican Party. So he's been coming online. He's been saying a lot of crazy stuff. So I'm excited to have him on. And yeah, we're gonna get back into the politics. It's election season coming up. We're still gonna be continuing to have cops on. In between that, we got a couple of other cops that wrote books that want to come on. We want to get you guys on as well. Go through your life, your career, what you're doing in the thing. And we're going to keep rocking out. I'm sure Friday is going to be pretty interesting. Tonight, last night was 10-4 Tavern. Definitely check that interview out. They had Anna Nicolosi on. I thought that was a really good interview. And it was not even because she was the best looking guest they had, but it was because she really broke down from a district attorney's perspective of how she looks at cases and how the work was for her. And you could tell she had a real passion for the work. Like when you hear the cops talk about, you hear the passion come out of them. Like John, when he talks about his career, he was lighting up. And it was the same thing listening to her last night. And I was like, I was like, wow. I was like, because I never really heard it from, I knew a couple of ADAs, but she put it together real well. She was able to explain it real well, the work and how she attacked everything and how she saw the police versus her work. Really, really good podcast. So if you didn't listen to that last night, definitely check that out. Executive Perspective tonight. Definitely check that out. We'll probably touch on some of the things they're going to touch on tonight, also on Friday. There's a lot coming out, a lot more on the corruption front that's coming out from politics, unfortunately, again, tied into security contracts, which ties into the NYPD, which, all roads lead back to the Eric Adams administration, like we've been saying on this podcast for 3 years. So it's amazing, dude. But yeah, it was definitely good to hear from John. I've seen him a million times. I've always been aware of him my whole career through studying. Never actually had a personal interaction with him like this in depth. So that was pretty cool,
Yeah, listen, I was saying it all makes sense, and it came full circle today, because I always said the guys in the key, man, they're all charismatic, right? Look at Ralph. I mean, he's super charismatic. The guy's great. George, and I always mention those two because they were so prolific for me as far as instructors, and because it always starts with the leadership, right? Started with John. John is charismatic. What a nice guy. It was a great conversation. I could talk to him for hours. So, John, if you're still watching this or not, thank you to your contribution to the NYPD. Thank you for your contribution for my own success. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here today, telling your stories. Great guy. I mean, really impressive. The Key has been an organization that has helped thousands of cops change their lives, because when you move up the ranks, it does change your life. It changes your salary, your pension, your quality of life on the job. I want to thank everyone for watching today. And there were some really key points he said today, and I hope people take those away, because his description of what your metric of measure is of why take the exam and what makes someone a good sergeant initially, right, is showing that someone that cares. I thought it was a great explanation. And it was a great explanation also, because I really found that in my career, John. Maybe you saw the same thing. I saw so many guys super intelligent. There was one cop who wrote numerous books, Harvard grad, super intelligent. I mean, this guy I thought he was far more intelligent than I was, but he couldn't pass the test. Just couldn't break that barrier. And so you need that training. You need to go to the key. Find us Unfiltered $6.99, $150 discount. It's not cost, it's your investment. So get in the game, go to the classes. You'll like it just as much as we did, honestly. I mean, John and I both, we're not just selling you a product. We both attended those classes and we both had success from it. So, I mean, I think that's 100%. That's 100% accuracy right here. If you just say that. So I want to thank them, and like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate it. And we might as well let's get to the coffee and donuts. I think we had a couple of hits here.
So wherever you're watching or listen, link to sign up for the sergeant's exam is in there. So definitely use code Finest Unfiltered 699 at checkout. Listen, do it this week, right? If you don't have the money, contact George. They're willing to offer you a loan through the Finest Credit Union. Contact them. Do it this week. Don't complain later on that you decide you want to study and then you're paying $869. I'm going to be like, I don't care. I'm not going to feel bad for you. I'm going to say too bad. Somebody reached out recently, asked if they don't have 3 years. They're about to have 3 years. Could they take the test? You need 3 years. It is what it is. They asked if the test could possibly be postponed. I said anything's possible. I don't know, but you need the 3 years in rank. I would never say it's not possible. Anything's possible. But whether it is or isn't, I wouldn't bank on it. I would bank on that I'm studying. If it's postponed, you get an extra month or two. And that's happened before, and I can't think off the top of the head when it was, but I remember that happening. The test got pushed back another month or something, and it basically just extended the class another month. It was I didn't come out of pocket anymore. It was just, it just extended out. I forget the exact year that was. But it is what it is. Start studying now. So yeah. So like I said, use that code. But just to answer your question, dude, I've seen so many dudes not pass the exam because they don't put the work in. It's just that simple. It doesn't matter how smart you are or what you did in the past. And everyone relies on that, dude. Everyone relies on, oh, well, I did this, so I could do that. It's you did that by doing this. So you're not going to pass this if you don't put that same level of work in. And, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Again, I was a horrible student. I was terrible. Math-wise, I'm terrible. I'm still not the best student in the world, but I put the work in and I was able to pass the test. I wasn't number one on the list, but I got a list number every time that I knew. I was in the 200s every time, I believe. And I knew I was getting promoted. I had no doubt. And that was my goal. I was I got to get over an 85 on these exams. I want a raw score of 85 on these exams because I don't know anyone that didn't get made that way. And so, and that's what it is. You got to put the work in. It doesn't matter anything else. So, and that's it. Either you're gonna take the road to be a sergeant and put promotion, or you're gonna let all those doubts and fears. I don't know where I'm gonna get transferred. I don't know what my overtime's gonna be. I don't know this. That's all bullshit, dude. Everything's gonna be fine. You don't know that anyway. You just assume that that you're going to be where you're at in 2 years. You just assume that you're going to be making the overtime that you're going to be at in 2 years. You just assume that you're going to like the detail you're in 2 years. You don't know any of that stuff. The future is not real, my friends. Didn't happen. You've made it up in your head. The only thing you got is right now. So, I mean, to me, I'm always giving myself that. I'm always giving myself. Not only would I have took the captain's test, I would have took the rank as well, too, because that's the other thing I keep hearing. I'm not taking the rank. It sucks. And I'm like, well, isn't that true for every rank? You know it. You're afraid of it. You hear all these bad things about it until you actually do it. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm glad I did it. And you're insane if you're not taking these promotional exams. If you're entering into police now, or you're in the police world now and you're not taking promotional exams, I don't know, you're not really in the police world then, my friend.
Yeah, listen, I say it often to people. This is the way I feel. I was never scared of losing money. If you lose money, there's always ways to make money. So if you're concerned about the cost, it's not really cost, it's investment. Money comes and goes, but opportunity doesn't. So if the opportunity is there, you got to take it. And I would say to those people, that's my firm belief. If you have 3 years, you're about to hit 3 years, you don't know if you're going to make it with the test. Who cares? Pay the $6.99. Take the classes. You still have, you know what? There's no loss there. You learn the material, you become a better cop, and you're more prepared for sergeant when you have the opportunity. I don't see it as a loss at all. And there's a lot of a lot of good that comes out of bad. If you end up going to these classes and the test doesn't come up for you, you didn't lose anything. You only gained. So to me, money comes and goes. I wouldn't be concerned with this if it's $6.99. It's an investment. So those are my thoughts on that.
No, 100%. The one battle says, "What about yesterday, John? Yesterday it already happened, my friend. Don't cry over spilled milk. All you got is today, bro. That's it. That's all we got. I'm not promised tomorrow. The past already happened. Don't worry about it." Sarah Khan is just one point, and then we'll get on to the coffee and donuts. She says, "You didn't have to put much effort in the last exam. Folks were passing after failing miserably and still passing after getting curved," which is the other point of why you need to study, because you need to separate yourself from those people, right? So we spoke about the test that happened in the curve and how that affected people that scored in the lower ranks, right? So like, let's say you scored a 70 and you don't really got any time on the job. You had 3 years on the job. You put some work in, you got a 70. You didn't do that well on the exam, but you passed. You got a raw passing score of 70. A dude that got a 61 didn't really study, or maybe I even heard as low as a 55, gets all the curves, right? They curve the test up. Now that person bumps way ahead of you, because not only did the curve push them up into the passing rank of 70, but now they have seniority points. They get all these other credits and they pass you right by. You get an 85, a 90 on that test. You're not really worried about the curve. Even if you drop, you're only dropping 20, 30, 40, 50 names. You're not dropping 1,000, 2,000 names, which happen to people, And so that's what I'm saying. So Sarah Connor says 50 is the lowest she heard of. So look, like I said, I have that FOIA in. I have it in for a while. Every time the due date comes, they just keep telling me they're going to push it back another few months. So I'm waiting for that to come out. But like I said, you need to separate yourself from those people. And the way you're going to separate yourself from those people is you're going to put the work in. You're going to take the 2 hours a day. You're going to sit down. You're going to take 2 hours a day out of your life every single day. Whether it's at class, the class, honestly, you could use that as a day off. That's your day off. You attended class, because John said they could be fun. They are fun. The classes I remember sitting in class, like, you got to kind of stay away from the clowns that you're friends with. You want to pay attention. But before and after, I remember all those experiences, walking into those classes. And then until today, I could see my instructors up talking to me on things. Till today, not just on tests. Right now, I could see the classes that I sat through. So, I mean, so they are fun, but like you got to put that work in and separate, because you don't know the bullshit that New York City is going to pull and how they're going to curve it. You don't want to be in that lower percentile. You want to be in the top test. You want to be where Eric was. You want to be number 69. You want to be, they call the class and I'm going, and that's it. And I'm going to start this journey into the next rank, and then I'm going to study again, So that's it. That's all. That's all.
Well, I think that's a good message, and I approve that message, because the bottom line is you cannot take these exams with the approach that, hey, I just want to pass. You have to take the exams that you want to ace it, and look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right. Those are your competition. You have to do better than them. And that's why you have to, when it was time to take these exams, go all in and make it a commitment. The more focus that you give during those 6 months, it's only going to pay off. And then it's one and done, right? Get the best score that you can get promoted as soon as possible, and then you work on the next one. And my answer to everyone is always, well, should I take the promotion or not? Get promoted. Get in that next rank. Get the quality of life. Get the pension that comes with it. Keep moving up, because you can help yourself. You can help people in the police department. You got to keep getting promoted. I would say keep moving up. Don't stop.
Yeah. Mikey G says, okay, it's now officially an infomercial time with John. Have a good holiday, everybody. Stay safe. I'm leaving. Mike, don't let the door crack you in the ass. Just because you never studied and you sat around and you waited around to get grade doesn't mean everybody else needs to do it. We're giving people a way to not worry about the political ramifications of the job. You take a test and you study. We're giving them that way. Just because you didn't do it, don't worry about it. See you later. Don't let the door hit you in the hiney. Have a happy Easter.
Hey, listen, this is infomercial time. I tell you what, man. I don't know why you would have any animosity towards that. We're trying to help the cops, and the cops. This is the key, right? Is by getting your head in the game, taking the right classes. You had George on. We've had George on here. We had John on here. We've had Ralph, and you can see why those people are successful. They're entertaining. They're charismatic, but they're intelligent at the same time, and they want you to pass. They want you to succeed. That's why people succeed, because they want you to succeed, so you feel that connection. But hey, Mikey G is actually laughing. We appreciate it, brother. We'll do infomercials quite often. So here's another one: coffee and donuts. Let's do it, brother. Hey, Mike, when you leave those infomercials, brother, make sure you leave some coffee and donuts still.
All right, Ralph Salento. Good morning. Here's a box of pink donuts for you scammers.
Those are good, man. Those are good.
Yeah. George said, "Morning, men. John has stories." Yeah, I know he's got a lot more stories, man. Even if we got to hear him offline, I'd like to hear him, because I know why he doesn't want to tell his stories, because a couple of stories he told, they're pushing.
Yeah.
But don't worry, John. The statute of limitations is over, so you're good. You're good. They can't.
18 months. Remember?
Just don't give dates and names, and we're good. And then just like, I don't know.
Hey, listen. And the statute of limitations are up. There's no double jeopardy. You're good, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. 516 Diecast, present for duty morning, my friends. So, all right, a little light on the coffee and donuts today, but appreciate everybody. And that's it. I don't think there's anything else. Check out Executive Perspective tonight. And like I said, if you didn't check out 10-4 Tavern last night, definitely check out that interview. It was a great interview. Eric, what time is the Executive Perspective again?
I gotta laugh. How's it for life? Put I'm Eric Dibb and I approve this message. Yeah, pretty funny.
Yeah, funny shit.
Yeah, listen. 2 hours and 36 minutes into it. Like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate friends and listeners. Thank you so much for being here. Trolls, of course. John Monaghan, awesome. Founder of The Key. If you're a cop in the NYPD and you're watching this show right now, you should be watching this show. You should be right now. You should have already done it, right? Find us Unfiltered, $6.99. Pay the cost, whatever it is. If you don't have the money right now, you find that money. You get in that class and you get your head in the game and you get started right now. Here's one right now. Joey Boots, $2 super sticker. We appreciate the coffee and donuts. Thank you so much. And yes, what time is it, John? What time is Executive Perspective tonight?
17:05 Eastern time, or 5:05 p.m. Yeah.
Are you confident about that? And dude, let me tell you, 10-4 Tavern, Tom and Pete, if you watch this, brothers, show's off the hook. She was great yesterday. Definitely easy on the eyes, but she was great. I mean, definitely watch that show. I thought it was an awesome interview. They really have I always say it's a who's who character, guest of characters from the entire nation, from the law enforcement community. Awesome. Not just New York. Really put us on the national level. Executive Perspective will be on tonight. This show is great. I love the two of them. Rob and Ron, thank you. They really make a hell of a team. And we'll be back Friday with our round table. Of course, our detective first grader will be here. Mom will be here on Friday, and we'll give you the content, what's going on in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely. That girl, and another thing about that girl, Anna, she has the #1 true crime podcast. Like, I was like, I didn't know that, dude. I was like, but I could see why. Like, listen, she had me drawn in. I was like I could have, like John, like Ralph, there's people that talk and they just draw you in. Like, she had that 100%. I was like, oh, I was hanging on every word. So real good. That was a great show. So that's it. We gotta bother Ron tonight while he's on the show.
John, do you remember her color eyes?
Nah, it's funny. Like, I always say I watch a podcast, but I never actually watch a podcast. I listen to it, even if I and a lot of times I have YouTube on and I'm listening to it while I'm working out or whatever I'm doing. I'm listening to it. I'm never really watching it. Now, I don't sit there on my TV and watch it.
Yeah, I think most people listen to it. I mean, listen, in the infancy of our network, I mean, if you look at some of the videos when John and I first started, man, we've come a long way. So and people were still listening. I'm like, damn, our production wasn't too good, right? But yeah, they were just listening. So which is great. I'm glad people are listening. Thank you so much to our friends who really help out in this chat. The engagement is awesome. Rob, good morning. A lot of comments. Rob's made me laugh here. Yes, Rob says he's the one with hair. You sure are, brother. Rob still got hair. I see Rob's running. He's looking like he's in great shape. I saw the other day Rob was on. I'm like, oh, he's looking like he's pretty jacked up, man. He's looking good. So keep it up, brother.
That's it, brother. All right, fellas. All right, let's hit the road. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys tonight, 17:05 or 5:05 p.m. Eastern time.
You don't. Rob says you don't need Eastern time for 17:05. It's okay. It's no time.
You're right, Rob. Thank you.
Yep. Rob, no cash. All right, everybody.
Find us
Find
Unfiltered,
Thank
fellas.
you.
We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?